I knew the name was Henry. Henry the Ninth.
King William,
Yeah.
Henry the Eighth. Sing about him.
He didn't get along
We
with his
ought
wives.
to make you chaplain at Marion County
No,
Commission.
I don't think I am called to.
Yeah, you do. Don't have to have any qualifications.
Randy did call, he said he's gonna be a little bit late this morning, maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Thank you.
I have 9 o'clock. So we will stand and have the invocation by Henry and then followed by the flag salute.
Father in heaven, here we are today to once again take part in that great blessing that you have granted to us, the ability to elect our leaders and to participate in our government. Lord, we're so blessed by this. And on this occasion, I want to pray that you would make all of us aware of this blessing. It seems, Lord, that apathy has become so common, even in our own community, that we do not keep the memory of those who went before us and fought and died, that we could vote, and so many of us don't. Lord, please build a fire in our hearts to get out and vote. And let each vote his own conscience, his own belief. But Lord, so many have fought that we can vote. Let us do it. And Lord, today I raise up our commissioners. I pray that you will give them your guidance. Give them wisdom. Let them make decisions on issues today that benefit us all. And Lord, if there are those that come before the commission today with grievances, let them be presented in an honorable and respectful way. Keep us mindful that if we work together with your guidance, Lord, we can resolve the issues before us. I thank you for the blessings that you pour on us, the ones we're aware of, and especially the ones that we don't take notice of. Lord, I offer this prayer in the name of your Son and our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, Henry.
So we'll call the meeting to order, and the first thing on the agenda is Susan.
Yes, Tina had told me that there were some questions about the properties that we were going to sell again. There is no need for any title work to be done. The only expense that will come is from, we have to advertise it in the paper 3 times prior to doing it, and then there'll be an expense for drawing up the deeds. But other than that, that would be the only expense. As I said in my quick little memo, you have the ability to do it by a sealed bid or by just having an auction like we did the first time. My thought was just to do it that way. It's a little bit faster, but we can do it whatever way that you would prefer. Tina and I had looked at doing it sometime here in mid-November, probably doing it down in the commission room on a day it's not in use, because I think the courtroom's pretty booked up because they're getting some new technology in the middle of November, and so it was hard to find a date. But, and then as to the new tax sale, the letters will go out today, actually, giving people 10 days, and then from then I'll probably come in because there's some questions on some people in escrow and how you want to handle those, but we're going to go ahead and send out the letters anyway. So, and after they get 10 days, and then I'll turn it over to Hannah for her title work. so.
Did you look at any, are there any properties in Ramona or northern Marion
Yes,
County?
and I sent a list to, I talked to the mayor and I let him know what's going on, so.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be included then, I
Yes.
assume, in the sale,
Mhm.
okay,
Yes.
perfect.
They'll be included in the sale that I'm sending the letters on, not on this one.
No, I understand.
Okay, I just,
Okay, yeah.
I started talking about two different sales, so I wanted to make sure I'm clear.
Mm-hmm. No.
Have we ever tried a sealed bid before?
We have, and there was some success, but not a lot.
Been
And I-
more success with the auction?
Yeah, and actually, I have been receiving quite a few phone calls about some of the properties that didn't sell last time that the county has, and so I think, and I've kept the names and the phone numbers, and so hopefully we'll be able to move some of those. I know there was somebody interested in some property in Peabody talking about putting in a restaurant and some other, like there's the, some property over in Florence, and I know we've been contacted by some of the cities, but we're just gonna put all those properties on and the cities can come in and bid on them and get them that way, so.
Okay.
And this way, that gives also the city the ability, or whoever wants to buy them, the ability, if they really wanted to bid as much as they want in order to acquire it, as opposed to a sealed bid that they don't really know.
On the first sale, I think, did we have a $500 minimum? Will we be waiving that this time or continuing it?
It was my thought to waive it so that you move these properties.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing,
Okay.
especially on the second
Yeah.
round, but.
Yeah,
um,
but if, do you have any other questions that I didn't answer? And, and Tina and I looked at the list, and there's about 20 properties that'll be on this line that we're just gonna do at the auction, so.
So the biggest expense would probably be the publication.
Right,
I noticed the publications are just,
very expensive.
yeah, very expensive. Okay, so I guess we can't get around that,
No,
so.
nope.
Okay. No, I have no other questions. Do you have any other questions,
No.
Kent?
Is there a law against putting them on a website, county website?
No, we can
We
put
can
them,
put them up there.
yeah, we can put them on, they can put them on the county website.
I mean, it might be, some
Yeah.
people look at it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that would be fine if Tina can get those on, that'd be great. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
yep. Tina, you're next with, administrative business.
Okay, I have minutes of October 8th and also October 12th.
Okay, so the minutes of October 8th, do I have a motion to accept them or make any changes?
I'll make a motion to accept the October 8th minutes as presented.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes of October the 12th. Do I have a motion to accept those or any changes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 12th presented.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there you go.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, you did have financial reports, you have the income reports from the departments, and then you have a briefing from emergency management, so I was gonna get down to that.
And so I do have a question on the Park and Lake revenue report on the trailers. Why do they fluctuate so much? Like in February, we received $1,995, and then in September, $6,300. I mean, every
Everybody
month
can
is-
pay on, they pay on differing schedules and what's convenient for them, so.
And they pay.
Some moves, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I
They
was
pay on
just
different
gonna-
schedules.
So some might pay several months at once, some pay, you know, you may have 10 pay 1 month and somebody else pay a different month. I don't know all the details of their schedules, but that would be the reason on that.
Some probably pay for 1 month and some pay
Yeah.
for 6.
Right.
But they're all pretty much current. We don't have delinquencies with any of these letters.
You'd have to check with Isaac because we don't have that information in our office.
Okay.
This is a letter. Let's see. I can ask him to provide that if you'd like.
That, you know, I haven't been out to the lake in a little bit. I think I'll just run out.
Okay.
I think we're looking probably for this Board of County Commissioner briefing. Is that what you're?
Yep.
Okay.
I have it on the
Now?
screen, and I think he gave us a paper copy. Apparently, he was not available today, so he did. But I had 3 copies of it. Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I have. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
That's quite a bit on the list of the fourth and the first quarter future projects. Training. Very good.
You know what his City of Hillsborough TTX is?
Nope.
TTX, because you also have it over and participate in power outage TTX.
So that must be something.
I would imagine it's probably stands for tabletop exercise, if I have to guess.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a pretty well, probably a pretty accurate guess.
Okay, now I know.
Okay.
The recertification for a pilot, is that drone? Probably is.
Yes, I would assume. As far as I know, he's not a
Yeah, that's what
Pilot.
right. Okay. Do have 2 salary sheets.
Okay, so we have hired Colt. Do you know how to pronounce that last name? Nope. Flux. I'll say Flux. As a part-time deputy sheriff for $12 an hour. And it also looks like we hired Charles Walker as a new part-time ABMT.
Pronounce that correctly?
Yes, I don't know. Sometimes when it's spelled in that fashion, it's difficult to,
I don't even have a clue
yeah.
how to pronounce that.
It's probably as simple as can be, but I,
Thank you. Okay, when we were going to write the payday and the holidays on the calendar, we realized that one of the paydays that we put down was a day that was also a holiday that would be closed, so we had to revise that schedule. So we have a revised payday and holiday schedule for adoption.
which one was it? Just interesting.
I
Just
don't remember.
interesting.
I think it was November. We had to change the payday from Wednesday, November 20, or to Wednesday, the 27th, because the November, the 28th and 29th were closed, and we had it on the 29th, so.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Just,
You wanna make a motion, Kent?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt the revised 2019 payday schedule.
Second.
could you also do the holiday,
Have oh yeah, it's holiday.
payday and holiday? if
Oh,
you don't
and
mind.
also the 2019 revised closing for the courthouse holidays.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the 2019 payday and 2019 Marion County Courthouse closing dates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Randy. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Have too many papers here. Okay. You had asked us to work on dates for the Christmas party. It looks like for the lake hall and for the two caterers that we were in touch with, that Saturday, December 15th is that evening that would work. We looked at some other dates and there wasn't availability of everyone, so that December 15th is a Saturday. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. And then
What time are you looking at, six or six?
probably 6.
Okay.
We haven't done it in the evening for a while, so we'll have to go back and look, but usually it's pretty early and people are out and on their way. And then we did have, just to give you a little bit of history, we have kind of tried to rotate with different caterers over the years. And so I had Ashley give me a list of the last 3 years. So in 2017, we had Keith's Foods, and their per person cost for the meal was $9.50, and then we ordered the desserts separately from the bakery here. In 2016, the meal was through Scott Catering. It was $16 per person, and with dessert through the bakery. 2015, we had barbecue with Gail Cooper, and that was $14, and that was also, we did the desserts separately. Some of these caterers are no longer doing catering, and so we did contact Keith's Foods, and they would do the same price as last year if we wanted to go with the same caterer 2 years in a row. And then we also contacted this tacos food truck, and so they could do like a taco buffet, which might be kind of fun and different.
Yes.
They gave us several different options, and they also could do a more traditional meal if we wanted that. But if we did a like a taco type buffet with a whole bunch of different choices on it, it would also have a chips and salsa bar, a drink, and we could include the dessert, which is a churro, and it would be $13 a person if we did that. Or without the dessert would be $10 if we wanted to order pies or cupcakes like we had before. If we did the more formal buffet, theirs is, if we wanted a choice of 2 meats, which we would, typically we don't want to just say we're having chicken and everybody has to eat that. It'd be $15, and that would include, it does not include dessert, so.
Is that
We-
local?
This one, right now, they are in Kansas City, but they are local folks, and they're actually moving back to Marion County. So we have that one, and Keith's Foods are the two that we've looked at, so.
What's the name of that lady that does a lot of stuff? Is it Ben Duff?
Kathy Sweeto.
Dr. Kathy Sweet. Have you ever contacted her?
I did not have her information. We've had,
Melissa Long.
Mac, yes, and, we've contacted her before, and we've had her before, but she hasn't been doing the bigger parties recently, so.
I think you should at least call, Swinoff.
Does somebody have contact information?
No, but I can get it for you.
Her husband's Randy.
She does awesome foods. This is a price comparison.
Okay,
How's everybody think about the taco truck? Just thought it out.
Something different.
Yeah, yeah.
well, we kinda looked at it as an option because it sounded
Yeah,
kinda
something
fun
different.
and different, so. Okay,
Well, I think it's worth keeping in mind that they're gonna, I heard they're gonna be moving back.
Yeah. and they were both local, I think, to begin with, so.
But they're not local yet, right? They're out of Kansas City.
No, but they are here quite often with
They
their
own a
truck.
house there in town too, so.
Yeah,
Oh, they do? Is that all you have?
I do need an executive session, for, the FMLA and shared leave requests. And as long as we do it before the end of the regular meeting, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'd like to put that at the end. That would be, okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I seen Bob Church is out, so we can go ahead and move on.
I'd like to ask, there's one thing, I see we have no road bridge on today, correct?
I don't see it
We
on
don't have no
there,
road
no.
and bridge.
No.
I've had some concerned citizens up in the wind farm areas call and want to know, since the rain hit and some of the things that the res trucks are going on dirt roads and getting stuck and stuff. What I'm getting at is our inspector doing anything to this effect?
I was up there Friday and I contacted Tanner Yost and told him what I saw, what I inspected, and talked to a blade man. And there is, I don't know, I think the wet weather, they're trying to cut some corners.
Well, I will tell you that I was also there. I went a little bit further than you guys did. I spent 3.5 hours on the road. And I sent an email to Tanner and Brian itemizing the roads that I was on and what I saw. And I did also speak to, as we were driving around, one of the res guys pulled up and wanted to know what I was looking for. And I shared with him my disappointment, and of course he said that I have to understand about all the rains. And no, I don't have to understand with all the rains, because if the roads are so wet that you can't maintain them, then you shouldn't be driving on them, was what I told him. But I did send the email off to Tanner and to Brian, and I said I have a long itemized list here of the roads that I was on. And one of my biggest concerns, I also attached pictures. I got the pictures of what I saw. And this is my big concern is, and I remember specifically them talking about culverts. On none of these, well, I shouldn't say none, they have not installed any culverts
Correct.
on their road entrances to their individual turbines, which is causing our water, which is disrupting the flow.
Right.
And I have multiple pictures of that exact, here, even here where they put this road in, all the water now is running off the field and
Right.
causing, so yes,
Right.
there's huge problems. I did get a response from Tanner, but look at this, I mean, this is ridiculous. And so, even though it's wet and even though they're out there driving around, so now it's gonna cost the county for our roadman doubling up time,
Correct.
fuel and
Correct.
all that stuff to fix this. And I told him it's unacceptable in my book.
Well, I think we're all in agreement the way it sounds. I just want to know what we can do now to push this either to the company or somebody, our engineer that we paid
Yeah.
money to, we need to get somebody on it, and so we can come up with some sort of factors here.
I have a picture taken on
Yeah.
Eagle Road of them moving one of those cranes across Eagle, which is not a designated route. The lines are down.
None of these are designated
Okay.
routes, Carly, that I have
Well-
pictures of, but they're using them anyway.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement,
Yeah.
we just need to figure out where we're headed then, because I've had a concerned call, and I just want to make sure that we,
But what we have to understand is even though they're using them with just pickup trucks. It's not the heavy stuff that,
some of them, yeah.
yeah.
Now, there's some
Well,
heavy stuff too.
but
I met a
they're-
backhoe on Bison the other day.
For the most part, what I'm showing here is vehicles.
Right.
But the sheer volume.
Right, because
Yes.
there's only 150 trucks right now.
Well, they got a semi stuck up there the other day on
Yeah.
a non-designated route.
Yeah, and so these pictures that I have are just a fraction, it's all like,
Right, I
all
know,
the ink I have.
I've heard there's quite a few, so
Yes.
I didn't drive them, but I did have a concerned call, and he wanted to make sure that the commissioners knew about it, so.
yeah, and I can read you my response to what
Well,
Tana
that's
said, but I
fine.
wasn't
Yeah.
too impressed
We
with
may
it, so I
need to
didn't.
have them come in, Kirk or Michael come in,
I
I know.
and tell us what's up.
Now, I know Brian is on vacation, he has been gone, he won't be back till tomorrow.
Is that the inspector?
Yes, he's the one that's out there every day, and he hasn't been out there now for a week, at least, because of his, and I don't know how long his vacation was.
Right.
But I know it's been at least a week he hasn't been out there.
But Tanner told me that there was an individual out there from their company.
Okay.
Well, I don't know who he is, but that's it. But anyway, yeah, I think we're in agreement on that, so. And I think our road maintenance agreement clearly states that they need to keep the roads in maintainable, passable condition throughout as they're working on a regular
Yeah.
basis. I'm pretty sure I read that in there.
I was wondering exactly how it fell, what we can do.
I think it's in the road maintenance,
Could be
and
cost
I
or
put that in my
something.
letter that I think they're going south of the road maintenance agreement.
Could we contact Kirk or Michael, see if they can come down next week?
Yep, I've got it on my list.
That's all I had on Road and Bridge.
Okay, so, now that you've sat there through that, it's your turn.
No problem.
Go ahead.
So I have the numbers for September. We actually had a record month in the month of September, probably due to some significant multi-patient accidents that were in the county, so that kind of boosted our numbers, but our total was 166 for the month. I'm not sure as far as like how far back that goes, but I know that was higher than any month in 2017 from what we looked at. So we had 23 motor vehicle accidents, 42 medical, 24 transfers, and then some other miscellaneous calls.
That's interesting, because a spike up to 23, that's a lot.
Yeah, well,
there
and
any rhyme or
some
reason to
of
it?
that, some that number is built on the vehicle accident. From what I understand, the way Jamie does it is she builds in the number of, so instead of 23 separate accidents, that's the number of patients we transported from accidents. So I'm not
Oh.
exactly sure how many actual accident calls are off the top of my head, but there were 23 patients that we transported off of those accidents.
I see, okay.
And we did have some fairly, I mean, I was involved in a couple where there were four and five patients apiece. So I think some of our numbers were boosted because of the number of people involved was higher than typically we've been seeing. So.
Okay.
I'm also seeing, like, if there's an incident in a town, let's just say Peabody, that 2 or 3 ambulances respond. So for that same incident where we might have had one before, with full-time and volunteers, we're having 2 and 3 runs for one incident, so that may increase our runs.
Well, like the one traffic accident in Peabody that I was involved with at the beginning of the month was that was a case where we had three different transport units involved. So I'm still kind of new at this. I'm not sure how we're counting that, but technically speaking, you're talking about 1 call, 3 responding units. But I'm not sure what the history was on how we count that. But. And then the total number of calls so far for the year was 1,053. Looks like the total number of calls for 2017 was 1,290, so looks like we're fairly close on track with our 2017 numbers for total call volume. And then write-offs were 4,737.
And these are the quarterly write-offs that require commission action, I believe.
So $4,737, that's lower than usual, isn't it? If my memory serves me right, I think this is a pretty quarterly write-off. So do I have a motion to accept the $4,737 write-off for this quarter?
I'd make that motion to accept the 4,737 write-offs.
Motion by Randy, do I have a second? By Kent, all in favor say aye.
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 Do you know when the next EMT class is scheduled, or is there any schedule at this time yet?
As far as I know, we don't have anything scheduled. Josh, with Josh being the instructor, he's scheduled to start paramedic school in January. So we have an issue with the instructor there because he's not going to have time to be able to do that. So we're kind of down that situation there. For him and Ed were the two instructors for the county. So yeah, at this time there's not one scheduled. I mean, just off the top of my head, I would think that we might possibly be able to work with one of the colleges if we still wanted to try and offer something during that time frame.
Well, no, I was just curious because I know we get grant money and stuff for that, and I just wanted to make sure that the grant money was properly used.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the grant money is tied into each class, so I would think if we didn't have a class, then we wouldn't
There would be
get,
no grant.
there would be no grant money. I mean, that's my understanding anyway.
Okay.
So.
And the
um,
current class is
Probably.
still ongoing, isn't it? Until
Correct,
the-
yes.
Through December?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
through December.
Okay.
The only other thing is I would just update you, we've hired 4 individuals for the part-time that we discussed the last meeting. So we interviewed, trying to remember this whole number. I think I had 7 or 8, but we had a couple not show. So I think we interviewed probably about 6 people, hired 4 for those part-time positions at this time. So
Good.
we still have 1 position out there that you approved up to a total of 8. So
Is most of them acceptable, only work one shift and go down and
I'd say that on the outset of the interviews, I explained the situation to them all, that it was basically feast or famine, and and asked them if they still were interested, and they still stuck around. So, but yeah, I did explain to them up front that there wasn't a guarantee of hours, and some months were going to be more than others. So.
Good. So with the extra staff, do you feel a little more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, this month's going to be a little like getting them orientated. So, but I think we'll be a little bit more comfortable going forward to, to be able to handle shortages, and to also, we had, well, of course, the situation's going to change when he's in paramedic school, but when we had, Josh was teaching class, and always the discussion as far as comping that out or whatever, his hours there. But, that the difficulty there was not having necessarily the staff to cover if he taught class and then we comped out some hours to, avoid overtime, then, we had to have the staff to do that. So I think this frees that up a little bit if we have somebody teaching, that we can kind of move things around and try and avoid overtime, because I think that was an issue, and I definitely saw that this month. That's an issue going forward as far as, trying to balance that out. I think those part-time people should provide us that flexibility to avoid some of that.
So he'll be going to paramedic school, is that in Hutchinson?
My understanding was he was going through Barton counties. I'm not sure exactly if the classes are held over. Is that Great Bend, I think? Or so I don't know if he's going to Salina or Great Bend, or what the exact location of the class itself is, but my understanding was that Bergen County was.
And do you know, is that through a grant? Or
I
is that
bet-
something different?
Well, I think most of our people go ahead and get the grant when they do the paramedic school or the EMT school. They get that grant to help them out.
The same grant for both EMTs and paramedics? Is it the same one?
I think the program is. I'm not sure. I'm new to a lot of this. I didn't do school in this state, so I'm not sure if the amounts are the same or comparable. I mean, obviously, paramedic school is more expensive than EMT school, right? So I would have to look into that. I'm not sure how they distribute the amounts, for each certification as far as from the
I
state.
think probably what I would like to know is what the.
You might. I mean, we've had Kevin and stuff. Are you familiar with that at all? Did you see the amounts come in compared to like EMT school?
I'd have to look. We don't get the
Okay.
grant directly through the county for paramedic school, I don't believe. I think that's individual.
Oh, so it goes to the individual and the
Yes.
individual pay. Oh, okay.
That's-
All right.
It's just an individual, it's an agreement, I believe, between the state and the individual.
The state and the individual for paramedics, so the county doesn't see the money.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, because we're not putting on the class. That makes sense.
Right.
That's what I was wanting to make sure, to verify whether it's county is involved or whether the county's not involved in the paramedic.
The only way the county has been involved in the past when we've done the paramedic school is if the county provides money towards it. We have developed in the last couple of years an agreement that they can sign, just like the state has with them, to where if they don't stay and work, then that they repay the county portion if the county pays. So, as long as it's not a requirement of their, we haven't asked them to get that training,
Okay,
so.
Okay,
that's it.
that's it?
That's it for me.
I do appreciate you sending out the pictures of that building in
Oh.
Hillsborough.
Yeah, I just put it out there as something.
Yeah.
I know you guys are trying to figure out going forward.
It looks like a building that it could be usable. Of course, we'd have to put quite a bit of money in to make living quarters and stuff, but
Right.
I'd still like to kind of coordinate with Hillsborough on that.
Mhm.
Being they're talking about a centralized campus.
Right, yeah, I knew that was in the discussion and everything. I
Mhm.
just put that out there, the
Sure.
price, I mean, like I said, it's probably in condition that it would need some money put into it, but the price seemed fairly, low enough that you could put money into it and
Yeah,
still
it does have the doors and
still
all
be,
that,
but,
so.
yeah, so. Anyway, yeah, I just
Sure.
thought I'd throw it out there as
Yeah,
a
thank you.
consideration since, we have the whole apartment situation over there, so. Any other questions?
Do you have anything else?
Just keep Ken involved there, because he knows what you're talking about there, keep him involved in it, so he knows.
Okay.
If you hear anything
Yeah,
else.
appreciate it.
Yeah, somebody had
Well,
thrown it up to
yeah,
me,
but
so I just
Yeah,
passed it
I
on.
know Hillsborough's is still kind of a long-range plan,
Yeah.
but I know they want to try to move that direction, so.
Right, yeah, and I've had conversations with Ben over there and stuff and known that it's been more friendly towards that with their change in their mayor and everything. And, but yeah, I don't know what the timing is
Yeah.
on that. I guess my, just strictly from having worked over there from a responder standpoint, we have the advantage of the full-time crew, but we still are, kind of have volunteer level shoot times as far as getting the calls because, we're driving from the apartment to the station and that. So it would be nice to, since we're investing in the full-time to get your benefit of shorter response times, shorter shoot times out of that you would typically get with a full-time crew, which, I'm in some ways, I think we probably trim a little bit off of it since, hopefully we're like ready. We're not out mowing the lawn or doing something that volunteers would be at home doing house duties might sometimes be tied up doing. So but still, I don't think we're able to take as full advantage of the full-time staff with that we could over there. So anything else?
That's all I
Thank you.
have.
All right.
Thank you. So, morning. Is Dieter out there? Is he out
I
there?
don't see anybody. Nobody's right out here.
Nobody's out there, okay. So it looks to me as I'm reading this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dieter's gonna ask for executive session, she has personnel on there, am I right?
I don't know if she is or not. I wouldn't be surprised. It just depends on what she's discussing, I suppose.
And the same way with Lisa Reader. I sure would like to push them back with your executive session at the bottom. So when we make up the agenda, and while we have the time here, that's a good point. When we have the time, I want to ask something else. Yeah, I like all the executive sessions at the end. I hate to have the public
I
in and
understand
out,
that, but
in
it's
and out.
really difficult to do that, especially when you have certain groups coming in and wanting specific times, or your attorney needing the later times. So,
Well, yeah, but once our attorney gets here, he stays. So he's not on a schedule. Not that he just stays.
right, so if we did that though, you'd have a big gap. You'd have like do you want a gap all morning?
No, I don't understand.
Because
what
your
you're saying.
attorney can't come earlier. Some of these other groups are, okay.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding. The attorney, I don't know that has to do with what I'm asking.
Okay.
So I'm just asking it just like what you said. You
I
need an executive
completely
session.
understand what you're asking. The actual logistics of trying to get it that way every time are, it's not easily done, so.
I guess I don't understand that. If teacher wants to come and say, "Yeah, okay, we'll put you on at 11 or 11:30, whatever," her schedule should accommodate that, I would think. And the same with Lisa Reader. I realize sometimes maybe not, but not all the time.
Okay, is there a specific change you want me to make today?
Could you ask Lisa, because I know it's too late for Deetra. She's probably in transit, I would assume. So maybe Lisa Reader could come later if it would fit in her schedule.
Okay.
And then secondly, I'd like to ask, since we have paydays separate than the regular meetings, would it be at all possible to start getting our packets on Thursday evenings versus Friday evenings? As I'm going through the packet this particular morning, when I get my packet on Friday evening and I have questions.
So you want me to cut off people being put on the agenda
Yes.
earlier?
What's wrong with that? You cut them off, if somebody calls up at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock on Friday and they're on the agenda, you cut them off. Am I right? So just, we can start getting into a routine, anybody after, I don't know, I'm just gonna say noon on Thursday, where you can go. Now, if it's an emergency, that's different. We can use some common sense. But I'm just saying, I think when I get the packet and I get on Friday night and I have questions, there's nobody I can call because I'm at a weekend. I can't research the things and I can't get any questions answered. So this way I'd have at least, or we'd all have at least one day of business operation if we have a question or want to go contact somebody or something to, give us more information, we'd have a day.
Some commissions have their meetings on Tuesdays and other Wednesdays sometimes. so-
Yes. Mhm.
So why not leave it the way it is and move our commission meetings to Tuesdays?
That's a great idea.
Well, that would be fine with me. I mean, I don't care about that. That's fine with me. But then the thing is, okay, so we still get the packet then on Friday.
Friday, no, the weekend.
I mean,
You got Monday then if you got any questions, you
Mhm.
got Mondays that's just an idea.
I just want one day that I can call somebody, because when I have questions, because I always have questions. And I just think we could be informed better when we're more prepared when we come in. And it gives us a little bit more time to read the information. Our weekends are busy too. It's our weekends. And so we have to dedicate them just to this because we don't have enough time. So is that going to work? Which would work best for you?
Whatever the board decides, we will do.
I think it'd be easier for us to adjust than to have the clerk's office adjust.
It's an adjustment regardless. If you do decide to move your commission meetings, I believe you'll probably have to pass a resolution to do that. To
Yeah,
move
we
them
would
from
have to.
Monday, because by law,
Yeah.
they are established on Monday. So you'd need a resolution. I mean, because you can do it, but you
Now,
need
we
a
would need to
resolution.
confer with our county council
I
because
was
he
gonna
has
say,
his Monday
yeah,
aside.
just check make sure before we do something, we
Yeah.
check with everybody
We
to
can
see
ask
if it
him
works.
later today if Tuesday would work, if that would be the preferred day.
I just throwing it out. I know there's other commissions do things different ways and just an idea. I understand what you're saying about talking to somebody if you get something on your packet, because you don't have about an hour before Monday mornings, if they're not there, you're not gonna catch them.
That's
so.
right. Yes, and that's, yes, I would appreciate if we could do something, I don't care which way we do it, Thursday evening or change the
We can,
commission, it's
it
fine,
doesn't
but-
matter if you wanna cut off, scheduling earlier and get packets done on Thursday, that's fine, we can do that.
Well, so would we like to discuss it with the counselor, just ask him if Tuesday works for him, or if we need to go to the Thursday? Give him an opportunity to
Yeah,
chime in.
see what he says about
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
Okay, we'll ask him that,
Okay.
what's best for his schedule as well.
Yeah, 'cause
Okay.
it may not work for him.
Mhm.
'Cause he-
Then we can go with the Thursday,
Yeah.
that would,
Okay, that's not a problem.
I know he would, I'd love to be here at 9 o'clock, just like this morning, I couldn't make it, so it worked for me too, to help me on Tuesdays.
oh, Tuesday would work better for you
I
then
would
as
think, I'm
well?
gonna check with my supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah, cause you have some specific meetings on
Yeah,
Mondays.
yeah, every Monday morning, I'm at 6:30.
Okay, is it okay if I go and contact Lisa?
Yes, that's
Sure.
fine.
Thank you.
Beatrice should be here, her time is here. We'll wait a few more minutes for her, if she doesn't arrive. It's just, I don't know if Jessica Lauren's out there. I hear somebody out there.
Haven't seen her.
Oh, you haven't seen her yet? Patty, this is for you. I know you've been wondering what that is. That's for you.
What is it?
I think that's the fill cup that goes to the
Oh,
steamer.
thank you.
Mm-hmm,
I wondered where that was.
yes. Good morning, Deidre.
Okay, we'll start with goals. The quarterly, sure, there's a couple, let me give it to you. Thank you. You guys, do you want?
He probably needs one.
Okay, just as to report quarterly, we are almost finished with our special clinics. We have, tonight, or this afternoon, special ed co-op will go there and do immunizations, and then next week we go to Hillsborough to do immunizations. And then, aside from our Wednesday clinics, unless people call, we'll schedule them if they like a special clinic. But we've given over 300 people immunizations. This year, we did offer the flu block, which is a presentation that is for people, actually it's licensed for 18 through 64 with strongly encouraged for 50 to 64, but 18 through 50 if they have immune deficiencies or other chronic health issues. It has 3 times the antigen that the standard flu dose does. The high dose has, which is for people 65 and older, has 4 times the antigen. So we've had good response with the 50 and older group getting that flu block. So this is the first year we ordered that presentation, and we plan on probably ordering that again next year. So,
I'm gonna ask you a question then, this is on flu shots, right?
yes.
Okay, so how would you tell me that our county participated? I see some other towns and stuff, would 50% of our county participated, or did you make it to 80% of our county?
We have gone to, if you look over on the right,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
there, our biggest clinic was Center, and they had 57. However, we did add Tampa this year, and we had over 20. I will bring you the numbers once we get it all tallied. But Florence was a pretty good showing. I don't, Hillsborough we haven't been. Gospel usually is a good showing. It seems to be that different places have a different population group. Like in Center, it's more like young families.
families. We don't give a whole lot of high dose. Now Peabody, we went to the senior center and also to the school, so the senior center, obviously, we have more high doses there. So it just kind of varies, and I can get those numbers to you. But
Well, you know, I can see 50% already here just on this side, you know, of 60, you know, I just wanted to know how high it went.
yeah, and we would go, you know, the senior centers, we used to go to all of those, and now they don't serve meals every day, and so that kind of, you know, stopped things, but we do go to other community centers, as you can see. Saturday is November 3rd is the health fair. That I had asked if any of you are interested in announcing, that would be fine. I will have Olivia. The Hillsborough Community Hospital is in charge of it this year. And when it comes back to our time to be in charge, I'll ask you guys to be to maybe put that date in the calendar well in advance so that you can maybe take turns like you did last year, because that worked out well. So if you'd like to be, just let me know if you want to be this year, and I'll get it to Olivia, who is doing it for the Hillsborough Community Hospital. So, okay.
And I'll do it also if I can be early. It's Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to be early.
Yeah, again, she'll be doing the schedule, so
And
I'll
that's-
have
that's
her
fine. If
get
she
in
has an
touch
opening
with you.
for early, then I can do
Okay,
it.
yeah,
I
it'll
can
be
do the later.
8 to, okay.
I could do the, how long do we have to be there?
About an hour last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Half an hour?
An hour.
It was about an
An
hour.
hour?
Yeah, or a half an hour. I mean, any time, even if you just want to come and just mingle and be around, it's.
The 10 to 11 I could do.
Okay.
That's at the,
That'll be at the Hillsborough Elementary
okay.
School. Yeah.
But she'll
So,
be in contact with us.
yes, she will. And if you look on the front, that is a picture of Wanda. She is our part-time nurse. She works Wednesdays and Thursdays. She does epidemiology, which is disease investigations. So she's really caught us up on those. She's doing a great job, doing super. And she works very well has done very well in the flu clinics and the public. That's Manica.
Mannequin, okay.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Do you have any questions?
No.
Do you have any questions, Jenny? Yep.
Okay, I would like to then enter into executive session for personnel.
For how long?
Let's go. I didn't. Let's go 5 minutes and we can extend it.
Is this for performance or for hiring or?
It is for performance and hiring. Can I do that, or do I need 2 5-minute sections?
It would be better, you need to have it'd probably be just cleaner if you did it separate. Do one
Okay,
for
so-
performance and one for hiring.
So let's do hiring first, 5 minutes for.
Okay, so I'm gonna move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant KSA 75.319B to discuss, performance.
Hiring.
Personnel
Hiring.
hire.
You wanna do hiring first? I'm gonna
Yes.
discuss personnel.
Yes.
Hiring, for a period of 5 minutes with the commission and DTRA. All in favor, oh, I'm sorry, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Randy, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay,
say?
I
Do
would
you have
like,
something else?
yes, the
Okay.
salary sheet for the new part-time child care licensing surveyor.
Okay.
Good, how are you?
And
Okay.
she will also take on the Safe Kids responsibility.
Okay, so we do have a new employee, a part-time child care licensing surveyor, Erin Hine, at $16 an hour.
Is that E?
Oh,
Yeah.
the way you spell her name?
H-E.
H-E-I-N. Erin is spelled E-R-I-N.
Child care licensing surveyor and Safe Kids. She'll also do Safe Kids. Okay,
Is that all you have? Thank you.
so thank you.
And so, Jessica, we're running just a little bit behind, but you are next on the agenda.
Okay. Okay.
Please come up and sit up at the chair, the hot seat.
The hot seat?
Everybody has
Over
that
here?
opportunity, yes.
Okay. I guess trying to figure out just I lived kind of south of the Rural Water District 2 water tower, which the problem with that is it's at the Marion County Lake. So the area that I live in Marion County Lake is part of Echo subdivision, which was plotted in the 70s. I went down to the register and I had a copy of it and I forgot that at home, so I don't remember if it was 72 or 76. When the roads were open and the county accepted it, it accepted the roads at 50 feet across with 20-foot easements. Well, at that time, then the county, the state regulations were that you had to be at 60-foot across, and so the county opened those roads, not accepting the roads, and so they became a minimum maintenance road. So anything, now the difference between Echo subdivision and the rest of it is Echo was added in later, so the roads in front of Echo and over in this area are 25-foot roads on the register. But here's Echo subdivision, and from here to here, they were accepted at 50 foot. Now, to be honest, this is 12 foot. I went in the other day and widened this to 15. What the problem is, and there's a little bit of some elevational maps, here's Rural District number 2 water tower. And if you wanted to look at, this is kind of a hard way to look at it. It sits, let's see, you can see the road right here. It sits right here. So this is the crest of the hill. Everything either flows this way or this way as for water use. So from the water tower, it flows downhill this way and comes down this road. Because there's no ditches, it doesn't flow on its side of the road, it goes on the other side of the road. So if you look at where the water tower is, whenever the rains came like it did a couple weeks ago, it comes down the driveway and it cuts across the road and it cuts across this side of the road. And so a couple of weeks ago, after the big rains that we had 6 inches on, we had a big ravine in that road. So we actually went from 12 foot of road to 8 foot of usable road. Because there's no maintenance on it, I rented out a skid steer and I tried to go ahead and widen as much as I could from 12 to 15 feet. And I tried to take some of my grass to add to the road, which I'm not very good. I mean, that's probably like the 3rd or 4th time I've run a skid steer. So that's what I tried to do. I just wanted some help, and I don't know. So at this point, even though this is a municipality, and municipality should have some kind of access granted to it, this is a minimum maintenance road. So I guess that means that my neighbors and I are supposed to be deemed to take care of it. The neighbor had a tractor for a while, and he was blading the road, and he sold his tractor. I don't own a skid steer. I got one rented from locally here, and like I said, ran 3 hours worth. And this is after, so I removed the gully. The problem is to remove it and cut the dirt to widen the road, now I've got a mud area there. So now I need to see about getting rock. So I called to, I looked up the quarry online, and what the quarry number diverted me to Unruh's. And at Unruh's, she was talking to me and she mapped it out, and she was claiming that I needed 8 to 12 semi-loads at 25 ton of load of KG&E, and to haul it out and lay it, they're going to charge me $4,300. And she's like, "Are you sure the county won't?" No, the county don't take care of the road. I think she overestimated it. So I think What I probably need is about 70 ton. And I went back and her calculations, I didn't find right. I looked at 3 different calculations. I Googled 3 different types of calculations. And at 2 inches deep, 8 foot wide, going 365 linear feet, that should take about 25 tons. But on one of those, going up the hill across from Roy's, there's a low spot in there. And there's no crown on that road, so everything comes across that road. So I guess I'm gonna need more than that, so I think I need about 70 ton. I'm willing to pay for the rock. I know in the past, my neighbors to diverted gully issues, the county has paid for the materials and the locals provided the labor. It would be cheaper for me to pay for the rock and easier for me to have someone put it in instead of me trying to put it in. And if you would rather have me put it in, the problem is I have no liability and I don't want to cause problems. I have neighbors, FedEx trucks, UPS. Obviously, big semis went on that road to put the water tower up. So as a municipality, I just wanted to figure out how we can maintain access and not cut that road down. So that's what I'm here to find out.
And all of the water that she's talking about goes right on down the road to the, and as over the time, the nice new house, Spotchik's built it, I believe.
Yeah.
And if you notice that retaining wall and everything beside that house there, the green.
Which
Well,
picture are you referring to?
it's not even in the pictures.
Oh, it's not in the pictures.
They're on down here where this water, this is her house.
And the problem with that
And
part of the road down
and it
there,
goes
it's
clear
too
on down
narrow
here.
to maintain.
Yeah,
So,
and it's cut gullies on down the hill.
Is that the one, go head down toward the lake?
Yes, goes right onto the lake, right straight onto the lake.
if
there.
you want to, like this, if you can see the lines on these kind of look,
Yeah.
there's the water tower. It's supposed to try to give you an idea, an aspect of how
Her
everything
house is
lays.
here, water tower is right there. And so the water comes all the way down that road and comes right to this corner, right here where that, it just comes right shooting across here. That big house was built right off Lakeshore Drive right there. Spotchik's, or I don't know who's there. I can't.
No, they're,
Jose.
They're talking
it's
about.
different owner.
Yeah, it's a different owner, but I can't say their name.
Yeah, they built it.
And they've done a lot down there themselves. I mean, they actually put curb and gutter in, and then he goes in and buys a little asphalt and patches it up and stuff. My thought is if I can slow the water down at the top of the hill, that won't cause so much problems down there. But because it comes all the way from that top of the hill and makes that corner, it builds up a lot of speed, and that momentum causes issues with cutting. So I wanted to try to slow that water down. And to me, the road sits lower than the grass, and it goes this way. So it comes across the road and it goes, and it cuts into the road about 3 foot. So it takes a 12-foot road down to 8 foot. So I was trying to widen it to 15, but like I said, now I've got dirt in there, so if we get some more big rains again, that creates a mud issue. And I've got neighbors on the back side, and we're trying to keep that road open. But like I said, if something were to happen to the water tower, and you're talking about some heavy trucks, you know, you've got to maintain access up there for potential repairs and stuff. So I really would be good to have a crown, so at least the water would go into the grass and not cut through the road. That would be the goal.
I think you were working on some of the roads. Was this one of them?
It's one that when Jesse came out and we talked about it, I showed him. Because right actually down the road from her on the Rock Road, it's almost undrivable right now.
And I know out there at the lake, and I talked to multiple people, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Not specific like this, but problems on the
And
roads.
I think right now there's 5 places that we have marked on the outside that need attention fast, and hers is. It's
one of
all
the-
kind
one
of the
them.
exact same situation where rainwater has cut out, and I mean it's hard to drive. It is.
Well, when those roads were created, they didn't
Right.
put any kind of area in there. So Lakeshore Drive is 20 foot across. And not just 20 foot across, but you've got enough area typically on most places where you've got some runoff to go to grass. So if you come along the north side of it, I mean, a lot of places have culverts. Well, I have to put a culvert in my driveway eventually. I was trying to get everything else set up first before I put a culvert in. Like I said, Echo Lane had been plotted to be maintainable, but way before then in the 40s, those roads beforehand got built pretty small. So most of them are 8, that's what the problem is you could get a skid steer in there to work on it, but you can't get a blade in a lot of those roads.
And that was the comment that Jesse Ham made when he was in the truck with me.
And I know Roger Holter said that the city has a blade that is smaller than ours. And this was a while back that I had talked to him, and he said he would be willing to share to use that so we could get down some of these narrower roads. And like I say, that was a little while back. but, just come to my mind.
Well, and so what I do is I didn't want to cut into his budget, because my understanding is the rock that's coming out is mostly for inside Lake Shore instead of outside, and I didn't want to cut in, you know, I'm not opposed to I'll pay for the material, I just don't think I can do it very well.
And that was another question I had, because I wasn't sure about that.
Well, and see, I'm just sitting here wondering, in my mind, this is the lake, we generate a lot of tax dollars out there. We know the roads, there's lots of roads out there that are not doing the taxpayers out there very good service. And as a commission, I don't know, once she pays for this rock, then we're setting a standard for the rest. I'm not sure if this is the way we wanna go, to have her pay. I'm not almost, in my mind, thinking it's a responsibility of the county to do some of this, on some of these roads that have been left go for a long time.
And you know, years ago, you put millings down, and that helped for a while, it's just that once the millings were set, you know, it just eroded away over
Yeah, I
time.
can see that
Yeah,
looks
they
like
really,
it's still
I mean, at that
remnants.
time, and if they have access to millings again, well, I don't know when it was, 10, 15 years ago. So it was a long time, it made a big difference. It really did,
It's been a while.
yeah.
Do we have any responsibility for those type of roads, James?
Well, see, that's what we need to figure out. I
Well, I
don't think
certainly
it's the
think we do.
road and bridge department.
Well, I mean, are they a road or are they a drive?
They're a road.
There are roads, a
They're,
lot of
so,
them.
so they were plotted smaller than the width that the state had deemed. So then the county calls them minimum maintenance.
But it's minimal maintenance road.
Right. That's how they're deemed right now. That's
Right.
officially how they're deemed.
But now with the increase of housing and population and use of these roads, they probably need to come off of minimal maintenance.
Yeah, so I know, and I was reading through, and I guess there's the guy that writes for the state that gives direction to the county. The county commissioners can actually opt to non-maintain those roads, and I think that's the way it's been set for quite a few years. So basically, it becomes a minimum maintenance road. So it would be your guys' choice to take it off that if you wanted to.
So that part right in front of your house, you may have 4 inches of dust or dirt on the top, but after you get 4 inches down, and on her side of the street, you will hit nothing but hard rock. I run a jackhammer through my foot there 30-some years ago, so I know.
Yeah, there's
I
not
know
very
it's-
much dirt.
No, there's very minimal.
Yeah.
Just very minimal right there, so you can't cut a ditch right there even because that rock, like I said, we
I get you.
jackhammered through it to get services, gas service to you, and then to the house up on the hill too.
Yeah, there's not much dirt. There's better off as a house.
A
than
little
it is for
farther
farm
on the hill,
ground.
you've got some dirt up there, but not right in front of your house.
Yeah.
And it's already washed down to the bare, almost to the bare rock.
So the only fix is rock then, basically.
Rock or millings or something, I mean, millings is, again, would be a great thing. We happened to, I think when they come across that, it was coming off Highway 50 or one of the highways that was being redone, and it really turned out to be good stuff, but it lasts so long.
So it'd be nice in the future is to deem Isaac the ability, save some millings for him if he's the one that's gonna do the roads or whoever, or access to them or something.
He might have a tractor, but he don't have trucks and things like that.
Gotcha.
So I guess my question right now is, since you brought all this to us, and I know there's a lot of roads out there. And I would like to, I think what we need to do is really clarify our position for the lake and take all those roads you have in consideration to see where we need to go with this, what we can do as county for our taxpayers. Is what I'd like to do first, if you have no objections to that at this time, and I think we probably need to work on that pretty quick to see what we need to do. I mean, I have a hard time just letting you pay $4,400 plus
I think that's
maintenance.
too high. I think it's gonna be $1,000.
Well, I'm sure
bucks.
the county would get that a lot cheaper.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, even still, there's a lot of people out there that pay a lot of taxes, and a lot of roads are in bad shape. Am I right, Isaac? Okay, and I think really, the county needs to step up to the plate and do some service out there.
Would you take that same attitude and go to the road south of Dollar General and Peabody then?
Peabody gets a lot of road service already, don't they?
Well, I'm just asking, you talk about serving people and.
I'm talking about serving people that have not had none service out at the lake, basically.
Just asking the same attitude.
Not the same situation.
They all pay tax dollars, just like county tax.
I guess to me, it was kind of like having lead road access if you were getting picked up by a bus. I mean,
And that's about what we've got on
yeah,
on that road side.
that was the thing I was.
Same thing.
you know,
So I'd like to keep the conversation limited to the lake at the
Just-
moment, because that's what is the subject matter at hand. These people have been paying taxes for a very long time and have had no county road maintenance. By definition, as you said, and just because of the way things evolved out there. And I'm just saying, you know, looking forward, we need to realize it is what it is today. So I want to be fair to everybody, all taxpayers, okay? And I think we need to start doing and working with the ISIC and the road crew and stuff, and roads need to be addressed out there. A lot of them.
Have you looked at this, what she's done? I haven't.
I
I
haven't.
haven't seen it
I,
either.
I went up there and
Yeah,
saw it,
Isaac
yeah,
said
I
he
did.
has, yes.
Yeah.
What can we do with, just rock the top, or can, I mean, she's got a, did you build a crown, is that what you did?
I didn't have enough material to build
Didn't have enough
around.
material.
No, it's still sloped. It needs to, and there's still a little bit of section that still needs to be taken off that grass and turned into it. But it needs a crown. There's a flat area still in there.
How do you build a crown without building a ditch?
Well, right,
Just
right in front of her
pile
place,
in?
in front of her place, you might not be up, no, up on top of the hill where that one picture is, going towards, around towards the water tower, you've got some dirt there to play with, and you might be able to
Okay.
get a ditch.
Okay.
But I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, if you could build up the road, I mean, yeah, and that's the problem is the grass kind of right now sits really high compared to that. And that's why I was trying to I didn't mind taking some of the grass away to try to get it evened out with the road, but yeah, you're gonna have to.
And actually
Could be a
out
little bit
there
of an
with
issue.
the proximity of all the houses, it's kind of difficult to have an individual do their road in Central Water or someplace else. We have problems like that too, where water from one home goes to another in some cases, so we have to be careful.
And I will say that if there's some way to put that water off of there and it goes across into the pasture, that's fine with me. I don't have any problem. In fact, I tried to cut a little bit of an area right past those trees. And Dad said there's a ravine there somewhere. So if any of that water wants to go through the pasture, that helps out a lot because it slows that speed down a lot.
Are any of those,
Ditch, put it on your other side, wouldn't it go to a drainage ditch then?
Yeah, there's an area there, yeah. So we're kind of
are
controlling
any of
that.
those type roads actually bus routes or anything like that?
I don't know, I don't think the bus
No, 'cause
actually
they just
goes up
need-
there, they stop
just
at
make
the
everyone
bottom.
come down to the
Yeah.
end of the road.
Yeah.
I think it's more just a service to our taxpayers, providing them with a fair and decent road.
I know like UPS drives
UPS
up
and
there and FedEx, they all
FedEx,
drive
yeah.
up there. But-
Heck, when the neighbors set their mobile home, there was a crane back up there, you know, I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything
I got a call from a home health nurse that said this is that one on Rock Road that she can't drive
yeah.
across it anymore. So she said she's having a hard time getting to.
See, we shouldn't, I just don't think
Patient's
we should
house.
have that happening out there at our lake. I just don't. I just think we need to really seriously think, well, as a county, how we need to address this. And it's just been culminating for year after year after year, more and more roads and or lack thereof. It's time to step up and do something for the residents and the taxpayers out there.
Back when these areas were platted, when they had the roads back basically drawn into the plan, was there any contact with the county about, okay, there's roads that are planned for this subdivision, and what is the county's going to do, or what's the county's responsibility? I mean, going back, there's been, I guess, several different plats out there that have gone in.
I don't know how many different plats are out there, there's a bunch.
That's what I meant.
And I've talked to Emma multiple times about this, and no, to answer your question, every time I talk to Emma about it, just nothing. And there were some individual roads, and I can't remember that lady's name, she lives in that really cute, she works at the bank, log house.
Yeah, on the end.
Yes, and we were going to go in and redo that road because actually we're encroaching on her personal property. And somehow that ball just got dropped.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I think it's because the road was supposed to have been in the ravine area. And that didn't
Yeah,
occur.
but, you know, that's kind of irrelevant, we should have addressed it somehow. But I'm just saying, so, we have issues out there, and we know it, and we just never really took it on to address it. So, I guess what I'm gonna say is that we need to quickly get together and decide, what we wanna do out there and how many roads that we need to start addressing seriously. It would be my thought.
Just to help this situation out that's there, though, I'd like Jesse and James to get with Isaac, go take a look at it, see if a load of rock or two would do what's
I don't think a loader rocker
And see,
should
we
be
are
big.
scheduled to get a truck out to him. I know that's been, what, over a month now?
Yeah, probably right about.
Been
Yeah.
scheduled, but I know Ham talked to you, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But we haven't got that far yet.
The reason why I'm saying now is because she's got dirt right there, and if we don't rock on top of it or do something, it just goes right back
But
to
you
last.
said how many loads are suggesting?
I think they're wrong. I don't.
25 to 27 tons?
Well,
Well, that's
so
all.
I think she overestimated.
That's what I like to.
I think maybe 70 tons would be, that's a 300-ton quote, but I think it'd take about 70 or less.
That's
I think
four trucks.
Truck
it's
loads
still
is
gonna be
that?
about 5 trucks.
70
What is it,
ton.
13 tons?
And it may not
That'd
take
be
quite that
five-
much.
5 loads, I
I think so.
At 15 ton of
Yeah.
Be 70 tons.
But I'm just wondering then how we would have to do that to get that water directed, because I'd hate to put any tons on there if we're gonna go in and do any road grading and not have that taken care of. That would be a waste.
Well, that was a conversation that Jesse had with me, is that you can throw gravel back where it's washed out, but how long is it gonna stay there?
See, I
before it
think
washes
that's
right
foolish
back
to
in?
do
One,
that.
one big
Well,
rain.
So if you could provide them, I mean, that would be, because I tried to go in with skid steer, and I'm not very good on the skid steer. I mean, it does need to have a little bit, if somehow we could head it to where it goes into the pasture, so it doesn't keep coming down the road. I mean, the whole thing is we can divert it or change it somehow so you slow the speed down.
So you're saying that if we graded it differently, graded it to where it's crowned and track the water off, and not put rock on currently till we get this plan in place, that would be satisfactory to the moment?
Might be good to shape the road a little bit before you put the rock on.
Yeah, well, yes. And Roger, I made mention, I thought I had, correct me if I'm wrong, so I might be dreaming here, but I thought that one time I was talking to you and I thought you had a road grader or something that's, or a means of doing an hour or a road than what the county has.
We have a pusher attachment to go on the front of our loader that's narrower than what a blade is.
Okay. And so I was saying to this lady, right, we're addressing this particular property out the lake and the roads. But in so much as saying that, I'm bringing up that there's a lot of roads out there that we as a county receiving all the tax money out there need to really take the lake a little more serious and provide road service. But the fact was brought up that some of our roads are so narrow that we can't get our equipment down them. And so I was wondering, would there be a way that we could share some equipment or work together
Absolutely.
somehow
Cable wired in.
if we do this with your, okay?
That's everything.
Okay, that's where I was going, because I'm thinking rather than just one road or patching here or there, it's time for the county to actually start looking at some of these roads out there and providing a service.
He was asking about wires. There's one that goes right
Yeah,
there.
is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was
then-
talking about high wires, that's another reason why we can't get trucks down, some of them is, from there on.
But
on
I
the
think
top.
it's clear enough though. Yeah, just right there.
And that is one, that spot right there is pretty open.
Yeah, this is the
But
oldest one we
this
got.
thing I'm worried about, we do that spot, you really need to do everybody too. I mean,
Well, that's my point. I
and we
mean,
can't do
I'm saying
everybody
that
because
we.
our equipment,
Well, and he
Well,
said,
that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Roger said that
Yeah.
he would, you know, that they have
even
equipment that we could work
dumping
with.
could be an issue too.
well, and I get it, because
Well-
James was saying his blade's 16 foot across, slanted it's 12, and those roads are only 12, so there's no room. That thing's so huge, there's no way for him to turn around or do anything with that in most of those roads.
Well, I think we can work with the city and maybe solve that problem, okay? And we'll get back with you on what you're going to do for us at the lake.
The supervisors already work well together on sharing equipment as need. They just need to know scope of project.
Okay, well, awesome. So,
Keep all that to one. Yeah. It's all public. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
so we'll work on this,
Okay.
okay? And we'll get back with you very quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you keep any of them? Oh, you know them pretty well, okay. All right, so, Lisa Reader is next on the agenda.
You guys all done today.
Great, how are you?
Good. Mine's really more just an FYI, keeping y'all in the loop of what's going on.
Okay,
I have an employee that's gonna be leaving us. Tomorrow will be her last day. Cassidy is going back to her CNA roots, being a little closer to where she lives and getting married, so she's making all kinds of fun changes in life. So I just wanted to let you know that she did put in a resignation. Her last day will be tomorrow. So if you guys, if you want to stop down and say adios, that'd be great. She was very, very sweet in her letter to us.
Okay. Well, sometimes you gotta do these things.
Yes. And so we did go ahead and put an ad in the paper for the entry-level data collection position. Michelle I had visited and would like to take on the responsibilities of personal property coordinator. And I said, that makes sense to me. You're in the office, you've got the most experience and have a good head of what's going on already. So that's my last little piece of business, is just moving her to that position.
Lovely. Okay, so we have here Michelle Klenda is going from $19.52 to $2,061 to a personal property coordinator, effective 10/24. Hey, it's terrible to put an H.
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
That's it.
Okay.
That was it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, have a good one. You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Gail? Your turn. Those are the bids. I think they were put out in our, is that the different one?
This is just an updated of Jay Hatfield, so I just wanted to give that to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, you know, we've been in the process of thinking about a van for about a whole year now. And so, the 1st of October, part of the transportation committee, myself and Linnell went to Wichita. We went to Kansas Trucking Mobility and visited with them, and so they had two options of two vans. That we looked at and were interested in, and then we went to Jay Hatfield Mobility, and he did not have, at that time, he did not have this van, but he said he would do some checking, and so then he came down the following Monday with this van that we're recommending that the county purchase. It's a 2018 van. It doesn't have a drop seat in it, but they will put the drop seat in it. It has 8,344 miles. That's the new page I gave you here today. And they would sell it to us for $43,703. We also did Ron Morkentine on our board. He also checked with Hillsborough Ford. They don't have these vans, but he checked with a connection that he has through Guthrie, Oklahoma for a brand new 2018 van, and then you also see their bid on here also.
I noticed that the difference in this Hatfield Mobility from the original one that you put in our packet, which was $43,400, on the updated bid that you just passed out, they added an administrative fee of $303. Just
Right.
looking at the 43,703.
Right, and that's what the bid is, 43,703.
What's the difference in warranty on this one versus Ford dealership?
Well, the Ford dealership, yeah, I mean, it's a brand new van that they would have to build. down in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So it would be, I don't know the specifics if it does say on there.
5 years, 60,000.
Yeah.
36 bumper to bumper. What kind of warranty are you gonna give with this?
This van, it's for 3 years or 36,000 miles is included in that. And so it's, because it already has some mileage on it, because it was a rental van, it already has 8,344, so it'd be, I don't know, that leaves about $27,000 or something, or 27,000 miles, sorry.
Right.
They said we could buy an extended warranty. For a 5-year warranty was like about $3,300 some dollars.
Those extended ones are expensive.
Yeah, I asked him if we had to purchase that up front, or he said no, that once you got closer to that end of that warranty, if you wanted to, you could do it then.
You're just paying for the repair in advance. That's what you're doing.
Okay.
So, and if it's a good van, it should last you more than 36,000 miles anyway, without repairs.
Approximately how many miles a year do you think you'll put on it? Just guessing. Every year's gonna be different, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the average is. I mean, we've had this van that we had for 20 years
For a
and
long
it has
time.
94,000 miles on
It's
it.
under 5 surely, isn't it?
Yeah,
5,000 probably a year at the most, I would
it
think.
might even be less than that. It
But I
just-
mean, will it get more use now, since it is for mobility compared to what we had?
I couldn't say
Yeah.
that it would get any more.
And you have that amount in your budget to buy this?
Okay, well, in my budget, I only have 38,000. So this would be an additional.
I see. So the van that we have right now, is it critical to trade it in right now? Is it not working? Is
No,
it
it's
broke?
working, it's fine.
Okay.
It's just that we've had this in the budget, and if you want me to save until we have the exact amount, then it's gonna be a couple more years before we do that.
This line item in your budget was budgeted at 38, but you have other monies in your budget, right? To where you could cover the difference, or?
I suppose so. I mean, it just come from other places.
Yeah, but I mean, your total budget would cover this.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to go in the general fund to do a transfer or anything like that.
Your whole department, you would pay the whole thing, however you gotta do it through your budget. You look
Oh,
confused.
well, I mean, I say
You're making me
yes.
confused.
I mean, I think we can cover it.
We could, what is the difference, about 6,000, is that what it is, somewhere around there roughly?
Right around there, give or
Yeah.
take, yes.
We could, help make it easier, we could split that 6,000 into 3, go get sales tax for $3,000 to go with this.
You what?
We could go get sales tax for 3,000 and put towards that, her budget 38,000, 3,000 sales tax, and she'd have to find out the other 3. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Well, I sure would like her to scour her budget first
Yeah.
to see what she could come up with. And maybe we should do that before we even vote on it, so we know exactly what it is. I'd like to know exactly what, and where we're gonna pay for it.
Okay.
We can look at your budget and see what it
Is there, Jay Hatfield has been kind of holding this for us, and they want to know that if we're really intending on purchasing it, if we would give them a check of $1,000 to hold it. Otherwise, then they'll just put it back out there.
I would not like to do that, because we might lose that $1,000. So
Chance.
I think the $1,000 in our budget is better, or in our bank than theirs.
Okay.
And I don't know how long it will take you to find the information out that I'm asking, but
Okay.
If they decide next Monday with that,
Yeah, I can figure that out.
yeah, we can look at it this week.
Okay.
Do they ever have used units that are already put together, or it's basically, it's hard to find those?
You mean,
Yeah, you know, somebody trades one in that's got 50,000 miles on it for a new one. I'm just wondering if there's any market for those kind of vehicles out there. And of course, that would be through the people that you've talked to.
right, and this one van that we looked at had, it's a van that they purchased and to sell, but also there are people in Wichita who need a rental van to take people in wheelchairs, and so this is the van that they've been
Right.
using for that.
Right.
But he had a 2016 Amerivan that had some mileage on it that they kind of use as a rental also, but the 2016 van that they had some rust on it already, and
Oh.
we weren't really very interested in that.
That right now would be about 10 years old.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'd like to bring up something. I was at one of my board meetings that I'm on with Morris County. Morris County does this public transportation.
Mhm.
Have you ever checked into that?
Well, that's what we were at one point, before I came on board, is they were public transportation. That's where we got the 2 vans from, was from the Kansas Department of Transportation, through their program, and then we're public transportation for a while until they did some changing of their rules, and they weren't paying as much for, like, every month you turn in, what your mileage was, what your gas was, whatever, and then they would pay a certain percentage of that to you. And so they, before I started working here, they changed some of that and weren't gonna pay as much, but were requiring as much paperwork and that kind of thing. And so at that time, then that's when the county went ahead and purchased the rest of the, I'm not even quite sure, the contract with Kansas Department of Transportation to purchase the rest of the vans, and so now they're just under our department, so we don't do public transportation, we only do just for 60 and older.
I don't know if they made other changes, and I'm not gonna dispute the paperwork. I think paperwork is just, it is what it is. But in talking to them, and this is Morris County, which is a small county, they have 5 vehicles on the road 24/7 through this KDOT program. They get grant money.
Right.
And the service that they provide is amazing. I really think that we need to check into it again. There's grant money available. Now, the sad thing about it is, at this moment, is for this particular grant to help get vehicles and things like that, the deadline, I think, is November 5th or 9th to get the application for the grant in. But I think it's well worth you checking into it. I mean, boy, they just raved of that program, and quite frankly, at the meeting that I was at, the other counties are jumping on it too. I mean, Gary County wants it, Dickinson County wants it because of the amount of grant money that's available. Then you get grants from different areas to pull it all together. Yeah, you're gonna work a little bit for it, as far as paperwork and following all the grant guidelines. But the service that we could provide, and the money that we're gonna, the cost that actually come back on the county, I really think it's at least worth a really good look at again.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened all this time in between, but I do know that, boy, they're doing an awesome job in Morris County.
Just looked at Randy.
With what they're doing. I mean, she said, for $2, they'll come to the person's home. People who have dialysis, there's no limit. They take them to their dialysis and bring them back. People who have chemotherapy, whatever the case would be.
Okay.
They provided it.
Who administers their program?
You know what, I didn't get into all those details, but that's easy. I do have an email here from Michelle, their clerk, who gave the websites to go to and any more information, and they will provide anything. They're willing to, steer us in the right direction if we're interested in doing it.
I'm just curious whether that's even under the Department of Aging.
I don't know, but whatever it is, wherever, and I did not go into that detail because, like I said, we were in a different meeting. But it's, boy, the service they provide, what she says they do is just awesome. And the way she talked, I mean, they're a county of 6,000 people. And for them to afford, through this grant program, to have 5 vehicles on the road 24/7, that's amazing. So,
I will check into that.
yes, and I will give you this email if you don't mind, because it does have the website, it has her phone number, if you're
Okay.
going to check, and if it doesn't come under your department, that's fine, I'll check into it as well, just to make sure. Because as a county, I think I certainly wanna look at it,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Do they pay their drivers, or do you know?
Yeah, they pay their drivers, they're part-time drivers or stuff, I don't think they get benefits.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't go into all the information, and again, didn't have time over the weekend to make phone calls and get all the information I really wanted to provide. So I just relied on what she sent me in the email, looked at the website, and printed off some of the things that they do. And I do have here, and I'll give this to you too, I printed this whole thing off right here as far as, it's just the basics, but there's so much more to go through,
Okay.
to look at what they offer.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave it to her, I can print another off.
Okay.
That's why you run out of ink.
Just in. But I'll let you look at that, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is the 5 commission member board discussion,
Yeah, I put that on the agenda.
okay?
After the paper come out, we had a couple phone calls from a couple past commissioners. They're real concerned about it. And I think their main concern is that the public don't know what to vote on. You know, how it's gonna be divided or anything like that. And so there's everybody's opinion of how it can be divided. But, you know, I think there's some rules that we have to follow in order to do that. So, as Tina's pointed out, and I think maybe before too many wild stories gets out there, maybe we ought to sit down and work on it and see how it be divided, because I have a great concern. If you can see my district runs right through here, down here. This one's divided just about basically like that. So, how we come up and divide this is a very interesting question. I would like to see out of the whole game that it's really to provide better representation should be the goal of the project, not to bring people, you know,
I
not,
think so.
well, like I said, there's people that's talked about it before, but we never got it to the point of view. Maybe we need to sit down and figure out what we're gonna do, how we're gonna divide it, and is it a 2-year thing from now?
It starts in if it gets passed in November, I think, as I read the statute, by January, we need to have the districts designated.
If I recall correctly, when
Yeah,
I read that.
it's happening, yeah, once if it's approved.
Actually, I think it's by the end of December, you'd have to have it,
Yeah.
you'd have to pass your resolution before January 1st.
On the boundaries.
On the boundaries, establishing the districts.
Now, the work that I've done it so far, very preliminary, to put information out to people by using townships as, and this is just a start, I'm not saying that's what we have to do, but I use townships and the population, because we have to stay very close to population in each district. There's multiple ways to divide it. I mean, a township this way or a township that way or whatever, so that we do stay consistent and so that there is, the population is the same. One of the suggestions was to have, well, Hillsborough has a population of 2,900, just in Hillsborough. Marion and also this township just below it combined would put them right at 2,500, give or take. So if you add those two, and this is just, if you just add those two as their own districts, and then just split off the rest of us in a way. And you don't even have to do that. We can split Hillsborough in half if you want to. If you don't want to go by total townships, I'm sorry. But yeah, there's so many ways. I have, and I didn't bring it at the house. I didn't bring it, that's at the house, but I have like 3 different, just playing with it. So it's pretty, it's not a hard thing to do.
I think what I've heard in all the years that I've been here is that this group of people wants represented
Yes.
better.
Yes.
So
That's the same thing I've.
that's what I'd hope to accomplish if this passes.
Yes.
Is to represent our outlying communities. 'Cause, I mean, this whole branch down here, that's all I've heard from not all the people. That's why 92, I think the paper said 92 out of our is still three-member commissions. But this branch down here would like to be focused in too.
Yeah, and I get that up there in
Oh, yeah.
the corner up there. In
Mhm.
fact, they call themselves the armpit of
Oh,
the
yeah.
county.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
it's just,
But,
so just simply to divide Hillsborough and Marion off is not accomplishing what we should accomplish, in my opinion.
well, I just said that was a preliminary way of
correct,
dividing,
Mhm.
and we can do it any direction that you want.
I don't know the right way, can't tell you the right way, but I think if it's, we need to set that before 2 weeks from now. I mean, before the public knows what to vote
If
on.
you want to do that, that's fine. That's going to require special meeting.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I keep playing with it, and I don't mind, I'm happy to do it either way. But, you know, basically, if the people realize that it's just by population, you know, 25, or basically about 2,500 per district. And what I've heard, same thing that I heard when we went with administrator, is, oh my God, we can't afford it. It's gonna cost too much money to have 2 more people. But honestly, what I think we need to do is, if it gets passed, as a commission, we need to reduce our salaries. Whatever it is, so that there would be no additional cost to the taxpayer for the extra 5, because our burden, our workload would be less.
So we would take away insurance and wipe that out
I
too?
think we should not have any benefits, that is correct, and reduce our salary to accommodate the extra 2 people. Whether that's a 50% reduction or a third or whatever that equates out to, I think would also be fair. So therefore, there would be no tax increase or no additional cost to the county. I mean, to me, that's just fair.
Need to think about the future, though.
Yep.
Getting people to run for that type of office.
That's
Well-
the other big comment, Kent, you're exactly right.
I don't see that as an issue. I mean, you're always gonna have people willing to run.
You take, right now in Peabody, there's 3 out of the 5 that's, only 2 of them is elected people on the council, and the other 3 has been brought in by the mayor. I mean, that's what's happened in these 5 districts in the smaller towns. You can't even, what was our elections? We didn't have some people even fill the small towns up at 5 people, correct? Burns and some of them before. I mean, it's an issue. I don't know
So
what it is in Marion, but,
So what happens when you don't have new people stepping up to the plate to run for the position, then the incumbent just keeps going year after year after year usually, is what happens. I mean, it's not that the spot is vacant.
the mayor brings them in and appoints them. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the procedure at first, or
No, there is a vacancy created.
Yeah.
There is it's a 2 parties appointed, am I correct? Or
Not
how
at
does
the,
that
not at the
happen?
city level.
Oh, no, I thought county level, I'm sorry, but at the city level.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the city, that's an appointment process that the city
Okay.
undergoes
Yeah.
to fill those vacancies. In most cases, the mayor recommends for appoint.
But that's exactly right, Kent, what you said, is that's getting people to fill in these positions, once you go to that, is tough.
And I never understood that theory, because I find that people really are willing to serve. I mean, it was a letter was it a letter to the editor? Mr. Diepenbach said he would be willing to step up if we got no salary. Now, what he doesn't understand is that this is a part-time job that requires a minimum of 45 hours a week if you're doing the job right. If you're doing your research and you're reading your packets and you're reading the expenditures, that's time-consuming. And then if you have questions, the phone calls, and to go out and look at all these areas and stuff like that, your part-time job turns into long days. And so, I really believe that some compensation is justified. I don't know that we have to have what we have, and I'd say we need to take the cut, that there is no additional expense to the taxpayers for this change. And again, I'm hoping that we get more ideas, more experiences, more knowledge to toss around. And people who are more closely in designated areas have a better sight of it.
Well, I'm just asking. I mean, that's what the public's asking me. Past two commissioners let me know that, you know, they're not happy with it because they don't know. Number one, Hillsborough don't want to lose Kent Becker. And number two, the other one had some other concerns about, you know, the cities and stuff like that versus the rural people out here clear at the edge. So there's a lot of concerns. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, Kent was elected to run a term, you was elected to run your term, and I was elected to run my term. And our terms, yours and mine, will be up here in a couple of years. And I'd like to have everybody's input. I mean, we can make the decisions, but I'd like to have everybody's input on it.
Well, it's a little late for that because it's already gonna be on the ballot, and then once it passes, it's said by statute what we have to do. So I think that discussion is coming a little late. So I don't know that we can change that. But we do still have 2 weeks to get information out into the newspaper. And actually, I've been working with the newspaper. I haven't been working with Marion Record, but I will. I did contact him, and I'll provide them some information. But to get some information out. And I thought the last, yeah, and Patty and I have been working on it. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Anthony even
Yeah.
did some work on it too,
Yeah.
which he had in the paper.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, with answering how, you know, just one opportunity to, one way. So, anyway.
Hey, Todd, I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Todd, I didn't see you
That's all
back
right,
there.
hiding behind here and I'm
Yeah, I
not
see
raising
that.
my hand. We've heard comments too, like Randy, our concern would be dividing the city in half, and probably Hillsborough too. When we look at, we do have two larger communities that have a totally different voting block than rural. And dividing that up, I think has to be considered very strongly that may not be the best. So the best representation would be
To have the cities
in
as
those,
a district.
as those districts.
Yeah.
And we've come up with some examples too. The sad thing I see is maybe we have the cart in front of the horse again, because I would have to vote no on this proposition. I'm not totally against it, but we don't have a plan. And if we voted in and then we look at dividing the city of Marion or the city of Hillsborough, that doesn't make sense. I think one of the plans to even cut the county lake out, and as we do our long-term planning, we already supply sewer and water. That's a logical place for our city to grow. Having them not represented with us does not make sense. And rural representation makes sense in our smaller communities, but our larger communities do have those different needs. I think as we've been here before, we look at how we almost feel that the roads aren't being taken care of on the connecting links from the representation that we have on the funding. We'd like to have that back. So I think it's very important how we look at this, and I don't know if, Randy, if your folks have said, well, let's not move forward with this unless we have a plan. This probably should have been developed first to have folks looked at or consider before we put it in. And so I kind of like your idea on the pay deal, but I'm a supporter of a county administrator that would help take care of some of those issues too, but that's not the issue. This here is, I think, very important, and in 2 weeks, I don't see that happening. So, and I've had folks, how would you vote? And say, no, because we don't know. And if there's any inkling that you three would divide up the cities, I would have to say no.
No, and see, Scott, I'm sorry, Todd, that's not where I was going. I just said that, you know, anything's possible. But see, and that's why the proposal that I put out in the newspaper working with Anthony, we did not divide up the city.
You was involved too?
Yes.
Oh, I'll be
Of
darned.
course I
didn't know
was.
that.
I
The
was
paper
working,
didn't
I
say that.
study, I research, I learn, I do all this type of stuff. But yes, so dividing up the cities is not one of my preferred ways, but I'm just one. So,
I know it's very late in the game, but it would make sense to put some other leadership together to come up with a proposal, because I think a couple that Anthony had drawn, I'm just learning at the late date. This one having Marion as an island kind of cuts across the gerrymandering issue, so I wouldn't be in favor of that. but-
Well, maybe you could be involved, the cities could be involved in helping us divide the district.
I do have a voter in the hallway right now that just came out, and so it's okay to discuss the issue, but not which way to vote one way or the other, or which way you want to vote, because I don't want to influence anyone at this point while they're voting, so, okay.
Sure.
Well,
That's the number one issue I've heard.
Yeah.
How's it gonna be divided and where?
yeah.
And of course, the first things I heard were, oh, you gotta divide it by school district. Well, we can't do that. It has to be by population. So then there are multiple probably ways, but what's the proper way? Like you're saying.
So I think the answer to that is just to get the cities and the commission involved so that we can all work together with our ideas and, you know, divide it out.
Yeah, 2 weeks is pretty short.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad that we waited this long.
Well, yeah,
It's been a busy time, but I don't think it's impossible. I think we can still do it.
but to be able to get the information out.
We have, you know, you have people that are already voting, and we've been sending out hundreds of advance ballots.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I think we're.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to put some general information out about potential, you know, what would change if it passes. If the board would want to designate whether the Board of Commissioners themselves or whether they would be appointing someone, a group to work on those divisions, you know, that might be useful information for the public. But I don't believe that you're going to have your districts and
We're gonna have time to
then
get
the
them
people
out.
that have already voted have already missed out on that
Right.
information.
That's a very valid point that she's saying. I think, you know, we're just so far into it now that I think what she said is correct.
I mean, I don't mind putting some basic information out and, on behalf of the county as the, you know, as the public information officer, putting something out there. That would just be
Generalized.
general, not one way or the other, but these are the things that would change.
Madam Chair, we have put some data together too that might be helpful, that has numbers,
And that's fine. I'd be
population and
happy to
that.
have that.
On our
I'd love
agenda
that.
tonight, we're gonna discuss this. I don't know if we're ready to vote tonight to try and make a recommendation, but we're trying to get facts out to our folks too to see
You
where
guys
we
share
can
your
end up.
information with us today?
Yeah.
Top one should look very familiar to you. That's the current district.
Here, I can just pass them down, Roger.
I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, the first page is the current districts. Second page there is the township populations. Third page carries those populations over to the townships as well as adding populations of the cities. Fourth page would be a chart that I think was maybe talked about in the paper. One of them that Anthony had worked on as a possible proposal. Again, our concern would be Marion as an island there.
Kind of like Hillsborough.
Hillsborough.
Also call that an island as
Yeah,
well.
well, and I think the statutes kind of cover that gerrymandering there. The next page would be a proposal that would make a little more sense for Marion and possibly the county. Like it keeps Hillsborough the same, because the statutes, I think, are clear on population.
Yes.
It would, not that Hillsborough, Marion couldn't be split, but then we're definitely cutting away from more defined boundaries as city limits and townships. There's no perfect answer. There's probably a best answer, but not perfect.
What would the population be there in the total population would that be there for you to have central south and central north together? What is that joint population? You have that information?
Yes, ma'am, it's on the chart.
I don't,
There's 480 in
where am I
center.
at here?
And center is, even though it's still classified as north-south, the county merged that into one voting block a number of years ago.
Here, right here.
There's 480 in center, and there's 1,800. The population estimates you have are the current census estimates through, I think it's 2016 ending. Okay, so they took the 2010 number, it's still a mathematical, until we get to 2020, there's no hard number. So that would be 2,280 residents if you use center. Hillsborough currently shows 2,800 on the population estimate. And what happens there is all of your students at Tabor are not included in the population number. So that's why you see numbers as much as 3,000, and it depends on the enrollment at the college. Okay? And then all of the others simply put the incorporated town and what their population is. And there's a couple of them. Tampa, that was a mathematical equation that the Census Bureau uses. With the recent activity in that part of the county,
You have it for 100?
the census says there's 100
Oh, I
people
thought I just read 100.
live in Tampa.
That's okay.
But there's, I mean, everything else I see, it's more like 140 people.
I was gonna say
right?
165 is what I read, but that's okay.
Yeah. So that's where the numbers came. Again, this is just giving you the township and your incorporated municipalities and what the population is.
True, I understand that. And that's where we were going with it too, you know, the way you can slice off a township at the top or the bottom or whatever to make it work. Follow what I was saying.
You have the
Because I
jurisdiction
had
as
like
the
three
board.
different ways that the population stays about the same.
Ultimately, you three have the ability to create the lines any way you want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to split a township though.
Not
Anyway.
township or,
Township.
oh no, nobody said we were gonna split a township.
I think on one that we have does kind of split that a little bit, but it's
Oh, you're
just to
talking
pick up
about-
those numbers.
The one reported in the Free Press
Yes.
combined the city of Marion without the
You
county
got two.
lake, and then took the far eastern, Grant, Doyle, and Milton is what was reported in the newspaper.
Well, I thought it was Marion and then went down, what township is Burns in? Milton?
Milton.
No, okay, I'm in the wrong, I'm thinking the wrong thing, I'm getting confused. There was one that was south of you, instead of going north to central, it was one that was going
She
south.
wasn't Dry Street South, no.
1840, yeah, I think it was, darn, I wish I don't remember. I'm
My
sorry.
apologies, we simply used what was published to draw the map.
Yeah, and I looked at, like you have right here, I looked at three of them different ways, so I'm getting a little, without having them here in front of me.
That was Anthony's.
It was what?
That was Anthony's.
Yeah. But anyway, like I said, I'd be happy to work with the city or even Hillsborough, or I think council, is that okay? That we could get together and work with,
Gathering information.
yeah. I just don't think that that's gonna be too hard to do. You just have to, you know, take a little bit of time and actually study it. Did you have any other questions, Randy? On the subject matter?
Roger, why did you include those two sections in Gale Township? Or is that the center, the center, no, yeah, center does go over there. Yeah, okay, I didn't see the dark line there, okay. Answered.
I apologize. This was one of those, I'll call it a mayoral request, so it went together quickly.
Well, it's a tough issue. I mean, that's why the bigger cities have more population, have more people than what we do have in our county. And the towns that you see, this, or the districts and counties, it's up to 5 commissioners, and one's up to 7. What is that, Topeka?
I don't
I
know.
think it's Topeka or
Yeah,
something
there
like
is
that, or
something
Kansas
like
City.
that, yeah.
But I think there's a reason why they stay at 3. It's just that the outside people in this whole picture here has really felt that they're never represented, even though they are, but they're not here, they don't see that and stuff like that. It's just one of the facts of our lives in Marion County.
And I don't know why, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll correct me if I am, but I just think the way it's set up, I'll take any one of these pictures. I'll take this picture that you have right here. So if you have the 2 major cities as their own districts, and they're 2 different cities, 2 different types of cities, 2 different areas, 2 different, how do I want to say? Anyway, the cities they're different. They have different
Values and views.
Yes,
Philosophy.
yes, there you go. Okay, so agriculture all the way around is pretty much the same. So you still have 3 representatives of the ag people, the rural people, and you have 2 people really standing up for the cities. And to have us all come together. And I had one person tell me, well, you do that way, Hillsborough is those people are just gonna get everything for Hillsborough. Well, there's gotta be 2 other people that want Hillsborough to have everything in order for that to happen. So I disagree, but yet there are things that happen in Hillsborough or Marion on a weekly basis that we're really not aware of or don't see all the time, that the representative would be on top of it and bring it to us weekly. So I just think the representation is the big thing right there, that we would be more informed of all the needs of the taxpayer, would be able to handle the county as a whole. I am for it, and I make no bones about it. I am for it. I just think it's a healthier way to go forward, to represent the people better. I really do. I was 100% in favor of an administrator, still think we have to have an administrator. That would have been really the solution. But I think we shot ourselves in the foot with that, the way that was handled. I'm concerned now with some of the things that I'm hearing as far as ethics and so on, to go behind the vote of the people. I'm worried about that. I guess we could, as council once told us, yes, we can, but do we want to? Should we? Is my struggle. Yeah.
If that's kind of the question, I think the last run there probably wasn't the best at getting information out of between fact and fiction, and
Yeah.
sometimes doing what's right is easier in a room made of 3 where you have more of the information than going to a public vote that doesn't have the facts out there. I think that could have been handled differently from all. Some of us should have done more as well, but when it's you presenting the information, you have to be fair to both sides of the issue. And I would think that was maybe part
I agree.
part
I
of
mean,
that.
I didn't put out information. I just assumed that everybody recognized the needs. That was my fault.
Without information, most people will vote no,
No.
just because we don't know any better.
And that may be kind of where we're
Right.
at right here today on
Might be.
this issue.
It might happen that way. But if it does, it does. We'll move on and do the best we can as we are.
I guess the one thing that I see out of these so far that I would be supportive of, compared to experience that my father had as a county commissioner in Ellsworth County. They looked at going 3 to 5 about 20 years ago, and it was defeated because the map actually gave, because of population, there's only one city in the county that had a large population that would have given them 3 votes out of the 5, and that's what killed the deal because of that. And here, like you brought up, Diane, at least the 2 larger cities would not have majority.
Right.
in this, and it does divide it up. But we're more spread out than the county it came from. But I think that's important too, that there's not, but some could argue, well, now ag has the dominant vote and the cities are left out. So you could argue both ways, but if you do 5, so it's about, and I think you talked about it, it doesn't matter if it's 3 people or 5.
Yeah.
If you're not all working together, not striving for it, it doesn't matter who you're representing or how you're doing it. 5 doesn't guarantee this process is going to be any better. And potentially without other changes could be worse. Could be worse. I thank you for your time on this issue. And as far as the city, we're willing to work. We're going to discuss some more tonight at our meeting, options, and hopefully be able to make a recommendation back as well.
Okay.
Well, it would be nice to get some feedback from the 2 city administrators as to where they're at on that, as we try to implement something.
And the whole point of this is, again, like Randy said, is to give better representation and more diverse representation, cities versus rural, to make sure that everybody is getting being included in decisions equally. That's all. I bet you feel neglected sometimes as a city in Marion County.
I'm paid to do a job, and it's whatever the elected official.
He's got a strong hand on the wheel.
The strong side on hygiene.
Okay. Do you have any other comments, Randy?
No,
Do you have any other comments, Kent? Okay. Anybody out there have any more on this subject matter? Okay. Then we are ready to move on to MCC EDC. I think they're out in the hallway. That's probably also you a little bit, isn't it? A little.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you guys today?
Clint?
Hi. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Randy. I've seen him.
Okay, Clint, go right ahead.
Thank you. How is everybody this morning?
great.
Beautiful morning, and I want to thank Brad for giving me a call this morning, and he and I have already talked about what this draft, and so I'm going to defer to him to start us off with it, and you can share. I have read it, by the way, and there's no problems on our end.
What I tried to do was address what we discussed in the meeting previously, and then keep it as close to the basic structural approved document that the EDC had previously reviewed. There were questions and concerns, and those will obviously continue to perhaps be that way, because what you're doing, and we discussed that last time, is you're creating another position, or 2, because they will be personnel of the county in order for this to really work. And I think everyone understands that concept. In order for capers to be applicable and to make this happen, it would have to be that way. Tina raised, and rightfully so, we have policies that change from time to time, and we have certain benefits and different things, and those even vary slightly depending on the department and demands of those various departments. So I made this as generic as I could, left the inclusion of what had been previously listed in the way of benefits that would have to be covered, and then made the general statement, any other benefits available to personnel of the county. We really can't pick and choose as long as we're keeping that element of it clearly as a county employee. I did put an indemnification paragraph in at the very end, and again, anything that I changed, I highlighted, underlined, italicized, so everybody would know exactly what it was. And that, to the extent that it's workable, we've got 1 foot on either side of a line here, because really they are, as a board, an independent entity in terms of being a 501c3 and having their own articles and bylaws. They're primarily funded by the county, and we are going to take one of their employees, in essence, as long as they qualify, either 1,040 hours work full-time, and make them a county employee. So you're kind of stepping on each side of this, and I think we all understood that from the outset. You're then delegating that employee to them for purposes of everything from job description, administration, to reviews, to marching orders, to whatever it may be. So I did kind of that indemnification paragraph that would have some value, but it's there are times where they'd be like, well, wait a minute, it's your employee, so you're going to get a little schizophrenic on elements of that, and I won't deny that. But this is about the only way that I can think of to accomplish what the EDC is asking you to do, and still be able to arguably do it. The alternative obviously is, nope, we just keep it completely separate and they do what they do and the county does what it does and provides funding, or you do this. And so that's kind of where you are, and I think that probably covers what we discussed as well.
Yeah, I think so.
And I know Tina may have some concerns too, because in terms of the administrative side of this, she's mentioned those, and I recognize the same thing. I don't know accounting-wise and how you deal with pieces of that, how all of that gets accomplished in terms of that side of it.
What side is that?
On how we would even make that work with our accounting
system.
systems and our payroll system, and exactly how that it would basically require a whole separate process. So basically, no matter how many employees they have, it'd be the same process has to be done multiple times, because we would do it for our county employees. Since they're a separate EIN, separate everything, separate entity, we would have to even figure out how to do that for them. And it would be just as much time involved in doing theirs as, well, not with the timesheet aspects and all of that, but it poses some logistical challenges, is all.
How does the County Lake Improvement Board handle their time? It comes through here, don't it?
They're all, no. We do their bookkeeping, and they have a set amount that they pay. And they are not under our benefits.
Yeah, right.
And so we do issue their salary, and we pay with their funds. We pay their taxes, etc., for employment, and we do have to do they're 1099 people, because they're not employees, they're contracted. And so that's all handled through accounts payable, but it is actually a significant amount of work for accounts payable to do that. And then to do this as actual employees is even more difficult.
And I share that concern with you.
It's even more difficult,
And part of the constraint and the reason that we even have those kinds of immediate concerns is the first phone call I made at the point of the proposal of this, in terms of facilitating, it was to Capers. Well, they have a very stout set of requirements as to what they're going to look at, and it's basically 5 questions I've seen many, many times that they will evaluate this against to be absolutely certain that someone qualifies for that benefit, because they're more assertive about who they're going to let on and not let on these days than they once were, because of the viability of that fund, to be candid. And it's a fairly generous benefit in a relative sense to a typical 401k even. And so we kind of went through that multiple times, multiple phone calls to them, and theirs is really easy. They're either an employee or they're not. The county, they're either part of your personnel or they're not. And what whatever that looks like to you in terms of what you give your other employees, we would expect would be occurring here. That's the only thing we're going to care about in a relative sense. We're going to look at that, and if they are, great. If they're not, then there's not going to be an accepted contribution for them. So that had to work into this to make it happen.
So, this is just a question. Would it be feasible to even think, instead of doing it this way, if they're willing to pay the salary of the employees and the director, whoever it is, plus pay the total cost of the benefit package, which is substantial, for example, $500-600 for health insurance for the individual, on top of the paid salary, would it not be reasonable enough for them to assume that they could hire somebody as a contract employee similar to the lake and just, give them that amount of money and they can get their own insurance and things? They're willing to pay that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're in essence doing that through here. You have a greater package of benefits here when it's an element of personnel for the county. That's one short answer to that. The other really, I guess, I'd turn to Clint and defer to them in terms of, can you offer that job to someone in that circumstance with that particular benefit package as you can afford it, and would that be attractive? I don't know. They do their own recruiting, so on that part, thank goodness I'm out of the middle of. I'm just looking for how can we facilitate it and do what they're asking, which is treat, it seems in concept like it ought to be fairly simplistic with a paymaster, but then we run into, okay, well, we have all these different other tangential benefits, particularly of greatest importance, the one that leapt to mind was capers. You go to them and they steer the ship on that portion of it, and they said, well, the only way you're going to make this happen is they're going to be an employee of the county. It's not going to be a step in and step out kind of a thing. They are, and we're going to treat it that way. If they are, then like any other employee, you go ahead and set up their account, do the co-contributions, and away you go. If they're not, there's not a thing you can do to make that happen. So then they would be looking at another alternative for a retirement package, obviously, if it were outside of our, if they were still an employee, but just of the MCC EDC. I don't know.
Well, I sure hate to put that extra burden on our employees here. I just don't think that that's, I don't think that's a realistic thing I don't think we should do that, I really don't. I mean, I understand Tina's concern, I didn't understand the depth that it would be, but I think it would be substantial.
But is it even feasible for you to go out looking for a director and say, this is what we pay, and you fund your own benefits out of that dollars?
I'll give you a short answer, and that is I would not have worked 10 years in the economic development field what I did without benefits. Right. And I would ask, why would some employees get it, but no, that's too much work for you, so we can't get it here. In other words, I believe, yes, there's going to be a learning curve to start it, but I believe once you get the pattern, it'll be a matter of, of following the pattern. And I do not discount the idea that it would be a learning curve. That is true. But I believe once we get the pattern, I don't think it's going to be an undue burden. But I do believe that if the party that we were engaging earlier, that's what it all came up to. They wouldn't consider us unless there was a benefit package. I think it's unrealistic to do it without benefits.
And you said you have already looked at outside insurance and things like that.
We have. At a substantial increase in expenditure to do it with a single or a two-person group. It's just, it's not financially prudent.
So what it comes down to though is, so it's not financially prudent to do that, but then the time that we're going to pay our employees doing the clerks to do this extra work, which would actually come off of our taxpayer money. It wouldn't come out of your money. So
the issue that I have is how it all is handled, because if they have their own employer ID number, that's theirs. there's just a lot of things that would have to be figured out, and if they have to be treated as an entirely separate payroll, then that is a whole, you'd still have to do all the same steps. And granted, it wouldn't take as long for, 2 employees as it does for 102, and it would be a simplified process, but we still have to do all the steps, you still have all the reporting that would be required, and potentially separate reporting under a 941, for taxes, for taxing purposes, a separate set of W-2s at year end.
think the
And
other
all
element-
of, even getting it set up to be a legal way of doing it.
And it goes beyond the simple legality. In terms of setting up a structure, again, I can do that. The piece that we haven't gone and just made the inquiry of yet, because I wanted to make sure that, okay, this is what we want to do, and get it put together so that everyone is mutually agreeable, is we go to our accountant and say, okay, what other issues may arise in that respect because of that separate EIN number? I have not done that. And perhaps should have, but really I thought, take this one step at a time, and it's a two-step process to me. If you have the conceptual agreement agreed upon, then in terms of the effect and putting it into an action format, we're going to have to talk with him anyway. Because then he worst case scenario, he comes in and says, I don't know any way you can do that. I'm going to presume he would figure out some approach to it, but again, I haven't asked him, and I haven't asked Tina to ask him. Because it really started from, okay, if everybody is in the same boat in terms of the process or what we want to do conceptually, then okay, that part's solved. Now, how do we make it happen the easiest? Because there are times where they're going to need that separate EIN number and everything else that they do.
Yes.
So I don't have any concern or issue with that. And what we're trying to do here, I get it in terms of very difficult for an organizational structure like that to offer benefits for 2 people at most. Right now, unless they get going great guns and have so much work that they need 6.
We won't need 6. It'll be 2 maximum. I don't think we would have been going down this road had we not already seen a precedent, and it was in my case, that the city, basically, I think you just need to call the city administrator of Hillsborough and find out how he did it. It's not a rocket science thing. They've done it for 10 years. They did it for 10 years for me. So I think we're imagining some huge things, that may or may not happen.
I can't remember, who did you work for at the time the city did that for you?
I worked for the Hillsborough Development Corporation and the City of Hillsborough. I was an employee of the City of Hillsborough and in effect loaned to the Hillsborough Development Corporation. Very same, I took most of this document from theirs and it just functioned well.
And they had their own EIN number and everything?
The whole thing, you bet, not a problem. Bryce Wickert, it was the Development Corporation's accountant, and it just all blended real well because we had trust in each other to do this.
Well, and I think the laws and things have changed a whole lot more since way back then, and have become more complex. And trust, I don't think even plays a word.
It was 10 years, about 10 years ago.
10 years is a lot.
And I have talked to the administrator in Hillsborough. It's been quite a few months back now, so I'd have to look back and see what that discussion entailed at this point. I don't even remember.
So
But I have talked to them.
Hillsborough City and Development are still handling
Still
the
doing
same
it that way.
way?
Anthony Roy is under the same operation. It's happening as we speak.
Well, I think at a minimum, we need to get more information. I mean, Tina needs to find out what's involved and feel comfortable doing it before we should impose this on her.
Well, the board has already voted to go this route. I think you just have to get through this agreement and through this document. But the logistics of it is gonna be, I
So
mean, it
even
is
though we
concerning.
voted on it, we can table it or we don't have to enact it yet, do we, till we get more information?
The document?
No, I'm talking about the way we're doing things, what the information that you need to find out.
That's for the document itself, I think.
So this is this still, I see in here, it has to do with the bylaws. This is still kind of married to the bylaws, and the bylaws are not complete. We're still working on that.
I don't see this married to the bylaws at all.
Only, to the extent that they govern what they do,
We
that's the
govern
only.
what we do. No,
Yeah, that's
we,
what-
we are in the process of changing our bylaws, but it basically has to do with membership, not with the.
Administration.
No, that's exactly right. So the bylaws, we're not presenting the bylaws here for your approval because of, those are our bylaws.
And see, I still go back, and this is a little different subject matter, I still go back to the fact that we have no oversight over anything that they do by the way we presented this.
Correct.
We
I
have
mean,
no oversight.
You're a funding partner.
We're a funding partner, but we have no oversight.
Right.
So in essence, what I'm seeing with the development and everything that happened to our past economic developer, the charges and so on that were filed, she had no oversight basically either in some of those departments. And so I'm just kind of wondering, are we not learning anything from past experience? I'm worried about that. I'm really worried about that. And then this complication, I think, like we were just talking about the 5-district thing, are we putting a cart before the horse? I mean, have we got ourselves into something here that we don't know what exactly everything involved? I mean, that's the question.
If we continue to sit and wait, well, we'll never get nothing done. And so with that being said, if nobody else has any conversation, I'm ready to move on and present this draft document and vote on it. I mean, these people are volunteers. We've got to make it happen for them so they can get on with their job. They're wanting to do things, and we're sitting here. And if Tina runs into a real problem, I think she would bring it back to us and say, this is the real problem, I can't get over it. And so, with that being said, I'd make a motion to go ahead and sign the draft document with the agreement for the Economic Development Service to benefit Marion County.
All right, Randy made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll make a motion, but included in, a second,
I think
a second.
Oh,
He made the motion.
you made the motion.
I'm making a second, and I will make a comment after we vote on it.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Discussion, I'm going to say that I have concerns about what we're doing here. I have from the start. And I don't think trust pays any part of it, because they are volunteers, all very good people putting in all their time and doing exactly what we have asked. But as history will tell you, again, we don't have our act right. And when you're managing taxpayer money, I think we need to really know what we're doing before we do it. So whenever there's a concern, I would like to have that ironed out before we move on. So I'm going to vote no. Go ahead.
Have we voted?
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah, are you gonna call for a vote, Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking away. What did I say? So we have a motion on the table to accept the contract and was seconded by Kent. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Aye.
I just had a question. Did I miss it? What did the old information say when we originally passed this to begin with, years ago, 2 years ago?
This is entirely new from what we were presented 2 years ago.
Okay,
This
so
thing
they didn't
has-
have anything on an
No,
administrator?
this
Okay.
thing is morphed. Oh
Okay.
yeah, it had something in there about ultimately turning it over to private entity, but I don't know about the administrator. But all the details, everything has
Okay.
morphed into something
I didn't
entirely
know.
different than what we originally presented. Not the same at all.
And the comment I was gonna make, and I don't know if you've talked to Anthony about that, but I've talked with Anthony and HDC, and Anthony and HDC and Marion and Randy Collett and all of us would like, they want to talk to you, and then we all sit down together and talk about the direction. But I see this as separate from that.
I agree.
So sometime in the near future, we'll try to make that happen.
You bet.
I appreciate that, Kent, because I think we all need to know where we're going
Right.
and where it's headed and stuff like
Yeah,
that. I have
because
no problem with
they had more information for me than I had access to, especially with the HDC part, and so.
And so I guess at this point then, my questions are irrelevant, because I was hoping to get an actual budget and a financial statement, which has been asked for months and never gotten. And I didn't know if we were ever gonna get one, but I guess now we won't even get that, will we?
Yeah.
Will we?
You can make the request for it, certainly. I mean, again, what you've done here is procedural in nature, by way of establishing, well, I mean, again, it's kind of a multiple part process. We've developed this position, or positions, depending on qualifications, into personnel of the county in order for them to be able to get the benefit package that is really attractive to be able to attract a quality candidate. They've got to have that element to it. And yes, you're right, they're still independent to the extent that you have a separate board and they steer their ship in that regard, as I see it. And because we've not developed a merged interest in that regard. You've just got some employees that you've taken on that kind of, I guess you can treat it about the same way as Clint was saying, on loan to them.
Basically.
It may be a good way to conceptualize that, because that's the only way that I could make this come to fruition with the benefits that the county offers. The insurance isn't quite as touchy as Capers is in particular.
The one part of this document that I kind of have an issue with is about limiting their ability to participate in partisan politics. That's a very broad and general term.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that that's constitutional to be able to limit them from participating in partisan politics. And you have people that are even on your precinct committee and so forth. That's partisan politics.
I mean, the way I would normally word this one would involve, while on the job, certain types of activity. I did not change this one.
We do have a county policy on
Right.
that, and they would be subject to that, and I would think that, and then also that they would not be able to participate in the election of the members of the governing body. Does that mean they can't vote for their commissioner? That is a problem. I think that if you're gonna adopt this, that needs to go away. I mean, I know
bring
you.
that up before we voted on it.
Well,
I mean,
You can vote to reconsider. I can either reword that to mimic the policy of the county. Again, what I
we
did
just
here.
say it's subject to, because our
Our
policy,
policy.
I believe, is.
Yeah, I looked at that as not taking sides on one side of the aisle or the other.
Or since
during
the
your
personnel
job.
of the county, if you go
Right,
consistent with
but
our
see,
policy.
it doesn't say that.
Yeah, while
Um,
on the job.
Right. And we can't really limit someone's ability to do that.
That's really true.
From what that paragraph, the reason it was put in Hillsborough's sense so that, for example, me as an employee wouldn't go and get commissioners that would support me personally, and so there was a conflict of interest, and so that would limit my process. Now,
I
it
think
wouldn't
that-
limit my voting.
Right. I
But-
think the way it's written, maybe we need to say, maybe have it,
I think we should mirror the county one.
or say that to the point where a conflict of interest is created as far as
And I have no problem with that.
promoting.
I have no problem with that, but because that is the intent of this paragraph.
Okay.
And it may not be written quite as clearly as it was there, but yes, I think we have no problem
Okay.
with those kind of changes.
So since you have voted on this document, I wonder if you could take a vote to,
rescind that?
well, either that or with,
Reconsideration, either
with
one.
that paragraph to be further developed.
Amended.
Mm-hmm.
I
Subject
would
to
make
staff
that
review.
motion due to some of the political wording in that paragraph there that we'd like to bring it back to finish that somehow, is that correct? I mean, bring it back for.
Subject to staff review and
Yeah.
resubmission,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, so Randy made a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And since I voted no.
You can vote on that. You can vote on
I
that.
voted aye for this one.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I do love studying these documents and stuff before we vote on them. But anyway, so I want to get back to my original question. So you said we can request, even though we have this separation here and there, we can request that. But what happens in the case that we're faced with right now, to where I have been requesting, multiple people have been requesting for months, for actual budgets and financial statements, and nothing ever appears? What recourse do we have?
Hang on a second, let's let Clint speak to that.
No, I asked the question, I'm
I
talking,
haven't
excuse
got
me,
any.
I'm talking to the attorney, please.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Open records requests was another option that you had,
Okay,
because they follow the same rules that, in terms of their board meetings and
okay.
their minutes and paperwork.
Okay, now they don't provide minutes, I know the last thing that I got was notes from the previous minute, is what was sent out, was notes. They don't do official minutes. I have a copy of it here, and I have a question or two on it too. In fact, it says right on here, it says, previous meeting notes and consent agenda was approved.
Just treat those as minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. That probably.
I mean,
it's an own
the
budget.
wording may be, it doesn't say minutes, but it's our,
But the issue that I have is, and I'm sorry, but we have to do things right. I mean, I don't wanna have to always assume or guess that the intention is there. I wanna look at it and know that I'm reading minutes. That's the way Tina does ours, the minutes. And I think that's the way it has to be done, right? Because the minutes are official statements of what happened during that meeting. Notes really aren't, are they?
Well, again, whatever is being utilized to, and you know, my preference obviously is to refer to them as minutes, and that's typically what they statutorily are listed as. But the official record of the actions taken and of the meeting itself. So if that's what they're terming as notes, then that is the document, but you know, it becomes a question of what are we calling it. So.
Okay. So, are you still seeking to hire a director? Are you advertising for a director?
we're on it as soon as we can.
I think they were waiting on this.
We are, we're not gonna
So-
go talk to somebody and say, I think possibly we can get you some benefit. You know, we need to be certain as to where we can go.
Okay, so I think Catherine, you want to say something about the request for the budgets and things?
Yes, all you have to do is fill out a request, and you will get those. If you remember at one of the meetings that you came to, you were commenting that you noticed that we used QuickBooks.
Yes.
As you were looking at a financial statement, you made that statement.
Exactly, but that was, no, that was a very simplistic document. It really was not a financial statement in my opinion. That just gave a list of your expenses. That was not a financial statement. I didn't even know if it was for the month,
Well,
if
you
it was for
can, you
a
can have whatever
quarter.
you want, but you have to ask for it. Otherwise, I can't read your mind.
Well, I have asked several times, and I think Patty has
Who did
asked
you
multiple
ask?
times. You.
You've received financial statements.
The same, I don't know checks, like Tina shows the check and what it was for and how much it was and
And then
that's,
you,
it's
and
broad.
I think I even showed you a demonstration. Did I bring a copy of what it looks like, so you see what you're spending this month and then at what it is your date?
Well, that's
I mean, so.
Excuse me, the last time we were here, we presented all of our financial records from January 1 to the present. And you received all of the expenditures and all of our income. Now, if it wasn't in the format, again, that you know, we could change that, but you have received all of the information that we have available.
I guess I will, I know you listed your expenses
And the income.
and your your donations and things that you have received.
that we received
Okay,
from.
but it wasn't put together into an actual, I consider it to be a financial statement.
Balance sheet.
What a balance sheet, yeah.
Balance
And I don't
It
know
was a
that-
balance sheet, it was a balance sheet is what it was, but perhaps, no, that's what you gave me at that
I
meeting,
gave
you
you the
gave me a
P&L
balance
and
sheet.
You got a P&L and a
Yes, and a
balance sheet.
balance sheet doesn't tell you the same thing as an actual
And a
balance sheet.
P&L.
It does.
May I invite you three to our meeting tomorrow? And you may have those documents, and I'm also gonna, I'm gonna sidetrack here for 1 minute. The presentation that Diane and Kent were at with the guy from Nebraska that talked about Marion County, he pulled all that information from a document that came from KU, which is about 500 pages. I have pulled out specific information dealing with Marion County, and I have a presentation that I'm gonna go over that provides a lot of good information for the county.
For financial or just
Well,
general
just
information?
for economic development, this is
Oh, I
what
see.
we're doing, this is what we need to do, look at, look at this.
I do plan to attend your meeting tomorrow evening.
Okay.
And so, and then I have one final question, and that is in your notes from the last meeting, you're paying for a advertising through the transit guest tax, is that correct? And could you explain
I don't
to
know what
me?
that is either. Is that something that's already been done, or is that something that you, because, I mean, that is, I don't believe you would have authority to be able to authorize that to be paid from transient guest funds without county approval, so.
Well, I had been asking you about the transit guest tax, and your response was a motion needs to be made by the board if you're gonna
This
receive
board,
those funds.
this board, not your board.
And
Sorry.
so the Economic Development Board made a motion because we have some tourism advertising that we want to do.
So you have a request that you'd like to submit as far as to be able to be paid?
That's basically what that's about.
Okay, and so those just need to, as a request, if your board wants to request that, that needs to come through my office, and then it can come to this board. This is the board that needs to make the motion to authorize those funds to be utilized for that. So, sorry if that wasn't clear.
Okay.
So then, since this board has approved $165,000 a year, and then we start giving them transit tax money, then of course their allegation from the county gets larger and larger if they're gonna start spending that
The
money.
transit guest taxes.
Excuse me, I was talking to Tina.
Okay, the transient guest tax is to be used for tourism, and it traditionally has been for advertising, which would benefit all of the county, or for, it has been spent on specific events for specific communities like Oktoberfest for Lincolnville, or especially some of the smaller communities. I know that when Teresa was here, some of the last things that she was spending that on was for the Chisholm Trail anniversary, and some of that was affecting Durham and that area. My thought is that we do have those funds available, and we do want to use them for what they are intended for. I mean, we have to use them for that.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be some sort of a path developed for fair distribution or fair use of those monies for all the communities within the county to benefit from that, and the businesses within the county. And so that is something I was hoping to work with this director when the director is here, also with Marion and Hillsborough directors, to try to develop a path for application of those funds, because it has, ever since it's been implemented, it's been a little bit hit and miss as far as who knows about it, how do you request it.
Sure.
I would like to really see a set procedure developed for that, to where it's fair, and it does benefit our county, because it is important. But traditionally, like, we used it to pay, and that was working with Randy Collett. We did, he got the business listings, and then Catherine did some, and so collectively, the county used transient guest tax funds to pay for those, for a portion of those listings. And So some of those were gathered by MCC EDC through Catherine, some came from Randy Collett, but that's something that is traditionally has been used for in the past. And so we did utilize transient guest funds for that. But if it's something, I just think there needs to be some sort of an application process developed.
I agree with you,
So,
I do.
Well, then that way we could maybe determine how much we could allocate out of that per year to MCC.
well, or they apply for it. There would be a method for them to be able to utilize the funds for tourism, just as anyone else, you know. I really don't know what the path is exactly, but if they have a request for specific advertising that they're wanting to do right now, that needs to come on through so we can see that.
In the past, Teresa really had she was, had those funds available to her to administrate, correct?
Well, those were administered through the county process, and the commissioners did see all of those expenditures when they came through as part of the payday process.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We didn't know how that worked.
yes, they were administered in the same manner as other county funds.
So, just off the top of your head, Tina, what other funds, because I know that they had requested, I think, some of our other funds that we have available to utilize. I think, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they try to use something like the transient guests?
That's what we're talking
I'm
about.
talking about here, the micro loans. No, yeah, and some of the jobs grants and things like that. You want to get into some.
Some of those funds are available, and there are programs with them, and they're just kind of waiting for a path forward at this point.
So is that something
Now, the
else that we
microloans-
need to discuss, or?
The microloans, we did have a microloan issued earlier, I think it was this year, for a local business. And that was something that we did make you aware of. There is a committee that administers those loans. But I still think even on that, there should be a lot more clear documentation of how to go about doing this.
Is that the same committee that Teresa used? Are they still together, or is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, but we also need to, I think it would be good to appoint additional people on that.
What's three of them?
Permission to speak?
We also have those pass-through grants monies, right?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It simply says pass-through grants fund.
No.
All of a sudden it's a zero because it's SCED program.
Right, and there is a microloan program through SCED, and that has not been utilized in a long time. The requirements are really, it's my understanding from visiting with the people on our microloan committee that the SCED requirements are pretty restrictive, and it's hard to get people approved through that program. So there hasn't been a SCED microloan issued in quite some time. But SCED does help administer the USDA microloan program, and they were involved in the last one. So typically, if a business wants to apply for a microloan, that does go through SCED also.
Yeah. Catherine, what did you have to say?
I was approached about a couple weeks ago with someone that wanted to open a business in Marion County. And since I had not received any information from Tina about the microloan, I really couldn't help this person because I didn't know where can I go for help. Without a director, then I have to act like a director, or else we're dead in the water, really. And so, I would like to have my questions answered as far as, how can I help this person? I think that at this point, she has walked away from us because I could not provide that information to her.
Are you talking about the business has walked away? Is that what you mean?
The person that wants to open the business walked away because I couldn't get any information about the microloan to provide to her.
I didn't have a phone call or anything from you.
I emailed you like 3 times.
Okay, I'm not seeing that. So I'm not quite sure.
I can forward it to you again.
Okay. If you don't hear back, I would suggest maybe give me a call because.
What's your phone number?
The county clerk's phone number is 620-382-2185. We do have our firewalls pretty tight, and so I'm not sure if it's, if things are
It
coming
didn't
through.
come back to me.
It won't necessarily. They don't, so. But anyway, if you don't hear back, maybe follow up. That would be a
Yeah,
great idea.
please refer anyone like that at this point to the county clerk.
Yeah, and I also refer people, to Marion and Hillsborough Economic Development because they have the e-communities and they actually have kind of an avenue into being able to work through SCED and get some of those things started. So, SCED is usually our first go-to.
Well, I've been doing research on where the grants are, where the money is, and so I'm trying to get that information not only on Economic Development's webpage, but also when people call me, I can tell them this information, and right now it's like I don't have very much information to give them.
Okay. Okay, so, Rennie, do you have any other questions?
Tina, is it possible to just pull up a sheet from last year's expenses on transient gas tax and the SCED microphone? Just what's in there? It's in our budget somewhere. Should be.
It's on
Yes,
it's
it
on
is
your,
possible. And we do have about 40,000
It was
right
in your
now
packet.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was in your packet.
in the transient guest tax.
Yeah.
And I do have a list of everything that we've spent it on.
Yeah,
so.
just so we can see it. I mean, if we're
Do
gonna
we
have to-
really encumber any of that?
I don't know what you mean.
I mean, is a certain percent of that every year encumbered to cover what we've covered in the past, or it's just?
No.
Okay.
So what was presented to us actually today in the presentation that she had in our package, the SCED micro, that we have 69,000 in.
Well, that's the SCED
That's
one.
the SCED.
And that
Yes.
hasn't changed for
A long
a
time.
long
And
time.
then you also have the USDA pass-through, microloan one, and that's 24,500. The transit guest tax is the 40,600, and the jobs grant is 18,800.
And I had somebody in my office working on figuring out what all the details of the job grant are, because that money's sitting there and it's for a specific purpose. I did find out we don't have any additional ongoing matching portion, at least not that I can see, because I wanted to make sure that we were meeting that obligation. But I haven't had time to go through all that information.
Can you send me that information, please?
The packet.
The packet?
What information?
I was just saying you could send her a commission packet, which has it all, but I don't know, there's a form that you have to sign.
So, are you requesting a commission packet for just this particular one, or are you wanting to receive the commissioner's packet every?
Every time a meeting is, yes.
Okay. If you would, it would be helpful for me to have that on our form before you leave. And with the contact information of where I should be sending it.
Okay. Do you email that?
If you could fill out a form in my office before you leave.
And then do you email that packet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I thought you were
I'm all
asking
for
me to
paperless.
email the form.
No, I'm all for paperless, that's.
Okay. But yes, if you could do that, that would help me remember and make
Okay.
sure that I send it to the right place.
Okay.
Okay, so any more questions, Randy?
No, that's
For
it.
these people? Kent, do you have any other questions?
I don't,
Okay.
at this point, other than, when do you think we could expect the signatures on this
Well,
document?
you're gonna bring it back
I
revised,
would
probably
presume
next
on
week.
Commission
Monday.
next Monday.
Next Monday?
We'll have to get their signatures at this point.
You should have it.
And I could pick it up from Tina, is that correct? And then we can take it and sign it, and we
Right.
okay, that's, appreciate it.
Thanks, Clint.
Okay, Brad. Next is Brad.
Okay.
Mr. Yates.
By way of closure on several things tonight, I didn't make full copies of these, and I'm certainly happy to do so if need be, because it's an 11-page communication from the Office of the Attorney General. We had a single CORA concern and a single COMA concern, both in the form of formalized complaints that were drawn some time ago. Actually, the one predates my tenure by a few days. We got the responses on both of those, and they weren't particularly surprising. They did a good job of going through them, and they were addressed to me, sent to the county here. As to the open records request, if you'll recall or have the basic knowledge of that one, it was with regard to some personnel records, a particular one that was discussed in open meeting on a now former employee. And there was then a subsequent request to see that, which as a matter of standard policy was not granted, because our personnel records, and they continue in here in essence to reinforce that the way they're maintained, they are other forms of personnel records under the statute, and they are limited in terms of discovery or the ability for someone in an open records to request to see. That one, however, anytime, and it's probably a good learning experience for everyone, that this board is convened in a lawful meeting and there's a discussion in detail about any document, basically that open record, that closed nature of that record, or that exception, is waived. So as to that one form, that one record, and I think Tina, in terms of her response from the county clerk's perspective and mine as county counsel, both acknowledged ultimately when we looked at it and reviewed the record, it's handy to have that, saw that I really felt like too that one was probably discussed in sufficient detail, that's probably the ruling that we were going to get, and is exactly what we got. They reaffirmed that the rest of them, everything also I should add, is subject to potential redaction. If we get an open records request and it doesn't fall completely within the exceptions, then it's appropriate to refuse it. I mean, we favor open records, obviously. So the potential and the burden falls to the public information officer, in this case Tina, to look at one of those and see if there's the potential for redaction, and you take a lot of things out of one, black all that out and leave the rest, and that gets provided to someone. They looked at that as well, and I'm glad they did, because I'd asked in one phone conversation for that to be at least marginally addressed, and they did, and said no, in these kinds of records, the way they're currently maintained, they are closed. And there's enough information about individual personnel in them as they're currently maintained that the open records request would not necessarily be honored as to those types of things. The one exception was that single record, because I think that day apparently Tina wasn't here, I hadn't started yet, and there was no one else discussing it with you. There was enough discussion about that one document that it became that the exception was lost or it was waived. So that was the ruling in that particular instance.
So I got that record.
Yeah.
Tina did send it to me.
Yeah, we talked
Yes.
about that, and that
So,
was
yeah,
to be forwarded to you, and it was.
Yes.
And that was the only remedial measure that they required at this point, and they weren't looking at anything else that the county was required to do, or this body or anyone else in terms of personnel were required to do.
And was that in part because when I made the request, that my only, one of the questions that they have when you file the court is what kind of discipline do you want? And I said, just simply give me a record.
Yeah.
I didn't recommend anything else, and I think that's why they said that just.
They at least mentioned it, yeah. I wouldn't, I didn't ask her specifically if they, because normally if they're going to, if it's sufficiently egregious, they'll come in and they'll recommend some kind of educational process. And these are so case by case in a lot of instances in my experience, it's difficult to give a good general broad sweeping question when you get down to the really nitty gritty of one of these. But yes, I mean, they did mention that. As to the second, which was the open meetings issue.
Before we go into that,
Sure.
may I ask another question?
Sure.
And it ties into open records, okay? So I have a question with a situation that happened on Friday, and Tina's well aware of it, whereas we met here to do, and I contacted you about that, okay? So this was my issue with that one. So, and that was our employee applications, okay? So I was stunned that Tina gave confidential information to the general public, but yet when I wanted, then I have to go through Cora and things like that. And so I would like to know how you draw that line. I mean, why is it that employee applications for a job was handed to the doctor, okay, but he's general public as far as I know at this point in time?
The answer to that, and Tina can expand on that more readily probably than I can in one way, if they are lineally, directly involved in the process, if they're a supervisor, if they're in some way going to serve as an overseer of certain records and are directly involved in that particular potential employee's employment, then that is not just a member of the general public. They have a direct interest as personnel. And so in this instance, as I understood it, that's in essence what was going on, is he's the medical director?
He's the medical director, and
that's
he
why.
is involved in the hiring process.
In this case, but normally in the past, he has not been involved in the
Yes,
hiring
he
process,
has.
has he?
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just
For
asking the question because I wasn't here.
For the EMS director, he is, because that position operates under his medical license.
Yeah.
And
And
he
has to
did
sign
come
off on
in, he
everything.
wasn't sure with his schedule if he would be available for all of the interviews. He did want to at least review the applications, and so I did provide those to him. And my intent was also to provide them to the board, obviously, for the interview. If I would have known you would have liked them ahead of time, I could have definitely done that, but it wasn't. And he understands that those have to be treated confidentially.
Yeah.
I did give him that information as well. I said, I can give them to you, but you have to, those are confidential. And the only reason he got them is because he is directly involved in that hiring procedure.
And the ongoing liability.
Right.
Because any and all protocols that we utilize, he has to, in theory, have looked at in detail, and he signs off, and it is his
Yes.
license that's on the line.
That's right.
And it would have been
And that's
nice
the
too,
reason.
at the time you gave them to him, if you could have emailed them to us or something. You know, I'm always looking for information, always. I just think, you know, if you're gonna give them to one, you should give them to us all. I think
He
that'd be
stopped
fair.
in, and
Yeah.
you were going to receive them. I'm sorry that you didn't receive them at the same moment that he did.
Okay, and the second one was the open meetings issue relating to candidate for the executive director position, I think with MCC EDC, where two members were present. And in terms of there being any kind of concern, that's legitimate. Anytime with the three-member board that two of you are in the same place, we have that potential. As it relates to several things. One, if it is in some way directly related to items that you may review or take action on, such as the budget for them, I get it that far. But there's one extra step that the Attorney General's office looks at in each one of those instances. Did you actively engage in discussion while there? And that's why, I'll be honest, in a lot of cases, I will tell if I've got one board that oversees another or has some relationship with another, like a housing board and a city council, for example, all of them make a concerted decision and even announce it in a meeting, we're all going to go. Well, yeah, okay, and they can, but then I have to go through the what they call that attorney stuff in that particular instance, and tell them you don't sit together and don't have any kind of a conversation over this. And if you want to wave at each other from across the room, but anything else, the appearance of impropriety becomes an issue as well. In this instance, they looked at it and determined that there wasn't any kind of concerted effort to be there in concert or to have any kind of discussion about what was going on. It was kind of that meet and greet type of a thing, so they found no violation in that instance. And so that was the extent of it. But again, good learning tool. When there's three of you,
3 quarters.
yeah, basically.
And we usually take that a step further. If I know that they're going somewhere, I will put
Call
a
a special
special
meeting.
note.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily call it a special meeting, but I will say, like for the health fair, when next week that you potentially all will go to, we'll put something out saying, hey, commissioners might be at this.
Yeah, maybe in attendance. But
So
not in
if you ever
concert.
get something like that, it'd be nice
Same way
to
as
know about it.
the meeting tomorrow night where we are all invited to.
Right.
Mhm. And that's triggers it as well. There's no reason that you cannot go in that kind of an instance. And obviously, based on the amount of time we spent today, you have a vested interest from the county's perspective in knowing what's going on there and should. It's just a matter then of if you do go, that there not be communication. And I really, really stress trying to avoid any at all. Just because someone else
Are
can
you
look at
planning to
it.
go?
No, I went to last month, so I wasn't planning on going.
I'll be in Independence tomorrow,
Okay.
so you'll be the only.
So it won't be an issue.
Okay, because I was gonna say, if you were gonna go, then I would just bow
No,
out anyway.
no, I was there last month, so go ahead.
So that makes that one easy. Yeah. For future reference, if that comes up, and it does. In these kinds of settings, there are a number of instances where it is involving something that you may very well at some point confront in the way of county business in the future. Attendance is one thing, attendance with any kind of communication is entirely another. So.
Tina has went to meetings when we had a meeting together, business people to start this Marion County Economic Development.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to get some information, it wasn't even going to be called that at that time, we just wanted to hear the business people,
Sure.
what they wanted. And Tina was at that meeting.
And there are, well, for example, if we still had the time and you decided you wanted to do the town hall kinds of things, of course we probably call that a meeting. But,
Yeah, that is a meeting.
yeah. But you know, in instances where someone else calls it, one of the cities does, and either the representative from that particular district or all of you just wanted to go and hear what they had to say, it's possible to do that, and we can either do what Tina was suggesting or call a meeting, or again, can allow it to occur. We just have to be really careful about communication so that it doesn't appear in any way that we're prejudging something or making a determination in advance.
And you know, Brad, I will say one thing, that coma in and of itself, to me is becoming, I mean, they need to define it better. Because every time a situation, like you said, appears, then you file the coma. Like one time I filed one and come back and said, we couldn't prove intent. We can never prove intent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, it's almost becoming a nothing burger law. You know
what, to a degree, but I'll respond to that this way because I hear that a lot.
Okay.
The fact that people have to be careful about it, have to even be thinking about it, it has done part of its job. Statutorily, if the goal is to be as transparent as we possibly can with all of these sorts of things and not predetermine when it's supposed to lawfully be something that's done only in an open meeting where you're all here in public and know what you're doing. The fact that you even have to think about it, compared to where it was even 20 years ago, 10 years ago, it has become ever increasingly an important area, and there's a lot more in the way of people watching. So to that degree, does everyone understand I've got to be careful what I do? At least there's always that thought process where, I'll be candid, many years ago, there were a lot of people like, I'm going to never have looked at that. Now it's something it's on every one of the agendas at most of these meetings or these continuing education things, and with good reason. I will agree with you. I get those calls weekly from somewhere about some board, and even after dealing with many of them, I'll be the first to tell you I don't know until I've looked at it really closely. And even then, you'll give an answer and you're not absolutely certain that that's going to be agreed with in every instance by the AG's office. Generally, I've had pretty good luck with that, but
What's so stupid about it is you go to 5-member board now, 2 of us can go around talking.
That's right.
And sit right there side by side.
That's right.
And you know, and that's illegal.
Yeah.
It just don't make no sense.
And for the
It
longest
makes no
time,
sense.
we couldn't even do that because that was impractical because they had the majority of a quorum. So 2 of 3, if you had a 5-member board, 3 was your quorum. 2 were a majority of that quorum, and you couldn't do it. And then they changed the law a few years ago, so at least 2 people can speak, because it was becoming too hamstrung in a lot of ways, and it was a universal complaint, still is, about how do we get anything done if we've always got to be that attuned to stepping on our own foot. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely on its face, and like, just like you said, just to reiterate it's pretty easy on the face, and the way they teach it to us, it just makes total sense, but then you try to have it enforced.
Yeah, applying it in practical terms is not that easy.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So.
Okay, that's
anyway,
those 2.
Okay.
Next one, we still have and I have drafted all the paperwork, and I just wanted you to be aware of it, should it be something you're asked about. On some of the properties, I know Susan was here first thing this morning on our tax sale, and the properties that we acquire, we do have the occasional instance where someone is occupying those, and in some instances wrongfully, by our standard. and are getting to a point where they haven't voluntarily vacated the premises for quite a long while. So I'm going to have to do an eviction. So that's going to occur. That one is
Sooner the better.
yeah. I don't think there's any way around it at this point. I can send all the letters I want. I don't think they're going to be observed. On that same topic, on the one property we've discussed previously regarding certain compliance issues and another board that has significant concerns about how property is being maintained or developed. I gave more time than I'd initially indicated to you because I always prefer that we develop something that's by agreement. I talked to Sharon here. Sharon is here. And we talked again this morning, so she would be aware to let the improvement district board know this evening should they ask. And I'm happy to talk to them as well. I gave till the end of this month to make contact with her, I, or both, with any further inquiry or to discuss possible alternatives to come into compliance. We
So
as
that, I'm sorry, that is given to the property owner till the end of this month, not
Yes.
the improvement.
Yes, yes.
I was just
I'm
making
sorry,
sure
yeah,
I understood.
yeah, no, that's
Thank
good,
you.
yeah. To the property owner, because I wanted to give them ample time and not have them say, when I originally proposed the 10 days, I thought it was because there'd really been kind of a 90-day period, and then when, before Emma left, that came out before she did, didn't it?
Yes.
She left at the end of August, so it was another 30. So there should have been ample time, but I started thinking, well, I'll go ahead and send this and give them a specific date that's easy to remember, and see if they'll get in contact with her or I, so that we can have a discussion about it. Our standing is a little more limited than I know some of the concerns that have been articulated by the board. Just so you're aware of that as well. Ours are not going to deal with aesthetics. Ours are not going to deal with some of the other things that people seem to have some concerns about in that instance, and they have every right to civilly institute an action if they so choose. We, however, have standing to deal with our zoning code, and candidly, right now, there are breaches, there are problems, it appears, with that need to be addressed. So, if we can't do it voluntarily by way of discussion and agreement, then I can't compel certain things to be done. I can compel certain things not to happen if they aren't done, which means it's an injunction form of action where you just can't use the property this way, or you can't develop it the way you intended to, so long as you don't comply with these requirements. And they are compelling interests in terms of hygiene and dealing with environmental issues, particularly along the structure, that we need to confirm. So I think we have enough certainly to proceed. I just would very much, because of the cost, candidly, we'll get into expense for proceeding on that basis, and if these folks choose to want to contest, there's no way to know what that runs into. So you hope that we can avoid that and use taxpayer money for something a little more productive. But we also have to enforce those rules, and I think Sharon and Emma, before her and Sharon, have gone as far as they can go. They've notified, they've sent out the appropriate letters, and discussed it with me, and if we're not going to get any response at all, then I won't have any other choice. So that's where that one stands. We've already talked about the EDC. Several of these others are just some staff questions that I've got to deal with yet today. On the one that you had asked about, and I touched base with Tina also on, we'll talk about that one yet in the interest of time here today. In terms of uniform treatment regarding vehicles that the county maintains or that the county owns, used by different department heads and different individuals in different departments. As I understand it, we have the one vehicle where mileage accounting is still to be provided where it isn't necessarily provided in other instances, and that's the concern. I had contacted, I don't know when that came up, but had some significant notes when I went back and looked at that, contacted several people that I trust through the IRS just to get some sense of how to interpret that, because it's not something I deal with every day. And the primary point of demarcation is in fact what you were discussing. They come up with if it's being taxed or not. And as I understand it, this is not taxed as a benefit to him. In that instance, the expectation is that there will be mileage logs provided because it's supposed to be a county-operated, maintained vehicle. they do look at, yes, how is it labeled all over the vehicle, what's it used for, does it have unique purposes? And on these standard vehicles, it could be, you could go to the grocery store with them. One of the things they look for is what's the identification on it. But then they said beyond that, for those kind, because they're common and they're utilized a lot in the different governmental entities, we look at what are you doing with them? How are you treating it in terms of the employee? Do they get to use it as kind of a commuter vehicle? And if so, are you going ahead, which we expect now, and accounting for that in terms of the taxation element to them? If not, if it is not accruing as a benefit to the individual employee, then the logs are to be provided. So that's kind of the short form answer.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, is that
That
good
makes
way-
sense. I mean, that's the way that I
Yeah.
understood it.
And so that's what's been explained to me several times, because I asked several times and with the folks that I called, because I wanted to be sure there wasn't anything else missing in an instance like that. And it can be treated exactly the same, but then what we'll have is a tax benefit to that particular individual, just like any of the others using them in that fashion.
Okay. So then, are you done with that? Are you gonna do another one?
No.
So then I want to bring up one other thing in that same category. Okay, so when we have county employees on the road and bridge, okay, to where the employee is given the opportunity to go to the county gas pumps and reimburse themselves for gas that they used, their own private lawnmowers, to do their own private land. Is that not also the same thing to where they have established themselves a benefit that is not being taxed?
If we're consistently doing that, and if we're doing it on a one-time basis, then we obviously need to develop an understanding of why that ever happened. For example, and I think that's one we do need to talk about. I mean, you've already mentioned that to me as well in terms of road and bridge.
It wasn't that specifically. It was about their other vehicles and their section and mileage
Yeah,
and so
and going
forth, and
around
which
and
ones are compensable.
monitoring and stuff.
I think we need a better understanding of exactly what occurred in that instance, because they should not be
Well, this is
utilizing it for their own purposes.
Right, and I have that in writing that Linda Peters sat here, and it's on the video as well.
Right, that's what she said that he said.
Well, and so
Which
the
is-
other people that were at that same meeting said the same. And actually Jesse even said it to me too. So, but anyway, it's just a policy that he has, and he allows them to go reimburse themselves.
We need to make sure that we understand
And then-
exactly what he's talking about.
Secondly, here a couple months back, and I brought this up in public, and was there, we had Jesse Smith, who is the supervisor under Jesse Hand, gave permission to the road grader to use county equipment, the dozer, and the road grader to go, and he took out a whole tree line of his neighbors. Took him quite a few days.
Was it on private property?
Yes.
Did it in any way impact the sight lines as you came to intersections in the
None of
public
that
right
was
of
ever,
way?
no, this was right out in the open.
We really would need to get all the facts, because the
Yeah.
questions I just asked are typically, there are instances where you get into, you move from the black and the white into the gray, and then we need to document pretty heavily because it is still public funds we're using. But it is possible, like for example, if you have a ditch and a portion of that ditch is something that is, as a matter of course, maintained by the county, and you've got an individual employee who says, you know what, I'll go home, I'll use my equipment if I can get the gas for it or the diesel fuel, and I will go ahead and maintain that whole ditch for a mile, and get it done because it hasn't been touched and it's way overdue, and it's creating several hazards. One, a health hazard in terms of standing water and mosquitoes and everything else, and it's also potentially becoming a sightline issue as you approach intersections in that area. Just a hypothetical. Then you can at least make a potential argument that we'd want a policy in place for that kind of thing, because you don't want that abused, and it can very readily become inconsistent. But there are ways that can come up where it could be justifiable potentially, I guess is what I'm trying to say. In most instances, you get too far afield of that, and you're just, no different than any other governmental entity. And for many years, I run into it. People would, who were on the city council would borrow the high loader, or because they knew how to use one, and they would go and rock their driveway. No, you can't do that.
So is it wise, should we not have a policy in place
Absolutely.
that says we don't do this?
Well, or at least we address it in whatever way you collectively want that to happen. But yes, something that we can point to and rely upon And I know, in so many instances, the thing, government moves so slowly, and then we keep adding things to it that make everything we do subject to scrutiny. But unfortunately, that's where we are, because it's public trust and public funds that we're using. So some form of guideline that everyone can rely upon is in order. And it also makes it easier for you to say, we've looked at this, and we don't allow that, but we do allow this, as long as it's legally permissible. So, yeah, I think, and we're kind of back to that discussion we've had several times before. Do you just eliminate it completely? Or do you say, well, we'll do it because we're trying to be pragmatic, and there are instances where it benefits the whole world if we do it a different way. And I can tell you that it's not legally impermissible to do, then okay. I can draw it that way too, but that will be the decision the three of you get to make. Whether you just absolutely preclude or whether you allow something to occur. And it's easier done with, okay, give me the specific scenario that you're trying to address, or at least generally trying to address. Do we ever allow anyone to have any reimbursement, like we talked about before, for road maintenance or ditches or whatever it may be? And if the answer is no, we just don't want to get into that, so we're going to keep it black and white.
And
that makes it easy.
And we didn't include employees in that.
Right. Yeah, and
we should
again,
include it.
well, they're
But it's a little bit different.
yeah, it is, but the way that, like, when I wrote that one with an absolute prohibition, it pretty much includes everybody.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So
then.
I didn't make an exception for internally within, and that would be tough to do.
Yeah.
To think about it.
Because there's
It
a lot
applies
of,
to everybody except me.
there's a lot of farmers in that particular area
Yeah.
where this meeting took place are wanting their fuel reimbursed because they all maintain their
They
ditches.
do that, yeah.
And so
I do too.
it is growing. It's out of control.
Yeah.
Growing out of control.
Yeah.
So we do need to really.
And in most instances, people's heart is in the right place. They're looking to maintain something because it just looks better. You know, you can see the edge of the road and know where the heck you are.
And most of the time, they're doing the county a favor.
That's it.
Because we can't get around
And
to
that's
it.
what I mean by the pragmatic considerations. You just have to have that discussion, determine, okay, do we just open a big can of worms or do we not? You know, in some cases, is it going to work
So,
or won't it?
yeah, to say we're just not going to provide the fuel or use the county equipment on property.
You'll need that for Christmas.
Might need that January.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I can't jump so long.
No, that's fine. That's, I think, my list for the moment.
Did you want to ask him about scheduling if you decide to change your commission meeting day?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you for reminding us. We had talked about doing something a little different with our commission meeting, and that is because, like, right now we get our packets on Friday nights. My problem that I have with that is any questions that I have or any research that I want to do, other contacts, people that I know that might be giving me insight, I can't contact them because it's a weekend. So I asked if we could go ahead and have a cutoff of maybe Thursday at noon for scheduling people on the agenda for that following Monday, and then get our packets out on Thursday evening. That would give us Friday. Or Randy suggested that perhaps maybe we can move our commission meetings to a Tuesday. Either one of those scenarios is fine with me. The problem is would Tuesday hinder you or not?
It would be tougher than Monday. I mean, I could look at like, for example, right now, the one that I keep open for the most part all the time are Fridays. You know, if I've got to schedule an all-day hearing or something like this, right now that one has nothing. Mondays was also recently open. I've got that 9 o'clock thing that we're still trying to work into a schedule where at least 2 of the 4 Mondays I don't have to go at all. So that if I needed to be here first thing, usually team's been real good about putting me in, the latter part of it. But Tuesday, the short form answer to your question is Tuesday would be tougher than the Monday is right now.
Okay. So then maybe we should resort back to just getting our packets on
fine by
Thursday
me.
evening, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That would work much better for me. Have a chance to do better research. I come in here sometimes and then you look stupid all the time. So just maybe don't have time to get the information.
Sure.
Like you had your buddy there at IRS, and I wouldn't be able to call him on the weekend or something like that. So, thank you. So you have your executive session that you would like. Okay, so before we do that, does anybody in the public have anything that they wish to address the board with at this time? Mike?
Sorry. You? No. Something that we considered, talked with Isaac out at the lake,
would be looking at upgrading the mile between 256 and New 56, and possibly signage that would give us a direct route off of 56 to the lake for a future investment. Whether Road and Bridge can look at upgrading that mile. Darren's on our Economic Development Board and said something about to do the concrete stabilization. There'd be one box that we looked at. He's talking $250,000. Do we go that far? Do we spend 50 to just put a good rock base? There's restrictions from the state. You get the brown signs, which are on 77. I think there is to talk about development, housing development on airport roads. So if the road's good, you see people that leaving the lake go to the highway. But Nick pulled another one out just the other day. Gal got on there, spent the night in her car, and fetched her the next day, which
On Airport Road?
What?
on that mile between 256 and
I
New
I
56.
missed out what
He's
he
talking
said.
north of Airport Road, way from here to.
To where you can go straight north to 56.
Oh, yeah, this is a good highway.
And then get,
That's just a dirt road in there.
if we would improve that mile, the state would have requirements to give us that brown, they call it the brown sign, on
On the highway,
56. It would have to meet certain requirements. Now, whether chip and seal road, whether it would stand up to any truck traffic. So, I mean, there would be a lot of variables, but I really believe for an investment of 1 mile that would do a lot of potential economic growth, or just the signage on 56, because you don't see it anywhere on 56, and there's more traffic there than 77. The rest of the county combined, I believe, unless you would go clear down to 50. Just a thought. Isaac thought it would be something great we could work on with your blessing. I mean, if we give Jesse a chance to ever catch up, or maybe we got to get through some wind farm issues, who knows? But I think it's something seriously we should look at. I don't think we can get a cheaper investment in our county than that, fixing that 1 mile up. That would make some benefits to our
Roads use a lot
growth.
when it's dry.
Correct.
They're not used when it's wet. I mean, it's.
And maybe there's even housing development on that mile or something if it was a nice enough road. I mean, it's just something I basically thought of as something that I think we should seriously explore
And
in
I
the near
just think
future.
that out there, the lake, the housing is gonna continue to grow
Well,
from one end to the other.
some way, somehow.
Yeah, I would think so.
But even the signage, I think that would bring them, now on the sign, my only thought was is whether you can change just like a corner of it out to the chili cook-off, the music festival, a fishing tournament, have an interchangeable part of that sign that could be changed. And again, there's a lot of state, according to Darren, a lot of state requirements that would have to be applied for and approved. So it's not a 5-minute project, let's just go build a road up, put up a sign. It sounds very simple, but again, it is not. But I really believe it's something that we could, I mean, it would be an investment for our future, I think. So.
Thank you, Mike.
I know there's been a lot of people got stuck because it went on.
So go from there, take it from there if you will.
Thanks, Mike.
Did you have anything you want to add, Alex?
I was just wondering, so you guys aren't, I mean, Tina's gotta look into
Executive session.
restructuring the schedule, and then like next week or something you vote on as far as that, right?
What do you mean?
As far as Thursday cutoff for agenda items.
I think that's in place as we speak. I already told my staff that if we're not changing the meeting date, then we need to do the agenda on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And the
So,
packets.
like, no vote needs to be held for that then?
No.
Okay.
That's just administrative detail.
Okay.
Did you have anything?
No.
Did you have anything, Jean? The commissioners? Any other issues or anything? Tina?
Just how are we
I
gonna
know-
get,
I
how are we
know-
gonna get about Road and Bridge? Get something with that guy there. That's the only thing we need to bring up is on that wind farm area up there, your roads and stuff that you've done.
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
You want me to get Kirk and Michael on the agenda next week?
Yeah, I think did we say that?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
thought we did. I thought
Yeah,
we
she
had
got
that
it
in
down.
her next
Okay.
week.
I wrote it down.
Good.
Okay.
I do have one salary sheet before you go in executive session that they just handed me.
Okay, and then I also think we need to set up a time to where we can work and discuss our future desire for the roads out of the lake, like I told that lady. I mean, the lake roads are horrible, and we have never done a lot out there. And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't meet sometime and discuss what are we gonna do and how are we gonna do and where we're gonna go with that, because I know it's gonna cost a fortune. And the people out there are so desperate to have their roads fixed, because they went for years with nothing. And, so it's gonna explode into one thing to another, if we at least address a lot of main ones first, and not just Lakeshore Drive. I mean, to where a lot of the roads, the housing and stuff is going up. So I don't know, do you wanna set up a special meeting for that, or? 'Cause
Have to, probably, if you want time.
probably, yeah, we do, you're gone the rest of this week now, right?
Yeah, I'm going.
Well, and wouldn't you want to be able to gather some information between now and your meeting as far as what roads there are, which ones the county actually has taken maintenance and
Yeah, I
who
mean,
hasn't?
I know we maintain Lakeshore, but other than that, I mean,
Yeah. How
Wetlands
many
addition was
miles
adopted
it
because they
is.
do have the proper right of ways. When Wetlands addition come in.
And I said that to Isaac that I would come out. I haven't been out there for a little while, so I said to Isaac that I'll come out, and because he has a full idea of which roads, he and
Right.
Jesse have all
So
that.
that would be good to
And
look at,
so-
but there's also maybe
Yeah.
other information that you'd need to look at too.
So, yeah. So anyway,
give it a couple weeks, so.
okay, so we'll go out and what?
Can you do the salary sheet first?
Yes. we
And
will.
then I just need 5 minutes of executive session
Yes.
for FMLA and shared leave approval.
That's fine. Okay, so then we'll set up a time maybe the week after or something for, to do a work session or something.
I want to get up and ride, I might have to run the county lake roads myself.
Okay, so we do have one last salary sheet here for Luke Steele. It's a 1-year paramedic raise from $15.55 to $15.80, effective 9/22/18. There we go.
And then did you all bring your packets that, the copies that Cherry made for you on Friday? Because I didn't make new copies of them.
I have mine.
Okay, and then do I need to maybe get you guys some lunch in here, that you can have between interviews, because your first applicant's already here, so. Since it's almost 1 o'clock, do you want me to-
Personally, I'm fine. I don't know whether those 2 lunch you can provide for those. I'm fine.
Maybe a drink or something, anyway.
Oh, I got some pop, you can get some pop down there, but, yeah, I'm fine.
All right, well, if there is, you can let me know after.
Well, we're gonna go into executive session.
Okay.
How long, Tina?
5 minutes
Oh,
is
5
plenty.
minutes, okay. So I'm gonna move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant KSA 7543-19B, in order to discuss personnel
This is
specifically to LE.
FMLA and shared leave
And
request.
shared leave request for a period of 5 minutes with the board, legal counsel, and Tina.
Second.
Second by Randy, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.